Welcome back, everybody, to the Luke Beasley Show. Here we are, big stuff going on. We have lots of stories to get into, lots of important stories to talk about. But before we do that, as a reminder / announcement to anyone who wasn't here last night, I was live streaming Super last night, where I pretty much announced that I'm changing up the format of my channel, of my show. So instead of doing a pre-recorded, edited video once a day, about one story, I will be doing a live stream each day at 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern, where I get into 4 to 5 stories in that first block of the show. So part 1 of the live stream, starting at 5 p.m. Eastern, is me going through the stories of the day that you need to be aware of, and that way I can upload each day 4 to 5 clips to the channel that will be a little bit edited, but pretty much a live delivery of the stories of the day uploaded to the channel. So now you have the option of, at 5 p.m. Eastern, you tune in and watch the show live, get the entire full show, or just check out the clips as they get uploaded throughout each day. So lots of cool stuff. Part of the reason is we're starting to build up a good, audience here, lots of amazing supporters. And so I want to be able to put out more content than just one story a day. This way I can do much more than that. But then the other big thing about the new format is, starting at 5 p.m. Eastern, I do news. Once we get through the news, then part 2 of the show every day is like react content. So it's more chill. That's when we all get our snacks and kind of relax, and we just kind of watch longer form type stuff. So if you're just here for kind of like the fast-paced news, then you just stay for that first part. And then if you want like as much content as possible, I will be doing an hour or two after the news section of just pure kind of react content and stuff. So big stuff. And then the way that we format the news section is I go through, deliver a story, and then look to the comments and kind of read what you guys are saying, see what your thoughts are on the story that I just told, as well as huge prioritization to any super chats that might have come in during that portion. So don't forget to send in super chats. A huge, amazing way to both support the show as well as get a very highlighted comment. So before we jump in, let's just check in. Claudia's here. Good to have you. Thunderbird as well. It is hot in here today, ladies and gentlemen. Whew. I cannot do the heat while I live stream. This is terrible. I'm so sensitive to the heat, even though I live in Texas. Okay, well, let's go ahead and just jump into. Don't forget to like the stream, of course, and we're gonna have a wonderful day today. Talk about some good stories, some bad stories. Actually, are there any good stories now? Kind of all bad, but we'll have fun doing it. Let's jump in. The Supreme Court has been delivering one controversial decision after another, truly letting their relatively new, heavily conservative leaning show. And so I want to go through today and update you on all of the recent notable decisions that have come down in the last just number of weeks, really the last week or two. So that's what we'll be doing for today's story, is walking through big cases that really reveal the recent ideological shift of the Supreme Court to the right, of course. And again, all of this has just happened in the last few days. Most of what we're going to go through is just the last few days, which is pretty wild. So first, a big expansion to personal gun ownership rights. Reading from the AP, in a major expansion of gun rights after a series of mass shootings, the Supreme Court said Thursday that Americans have a right to carry firearms in public for self-defense, a ruling likely to lead to more people legally armed. The decision came out as Congress and states debate gun control legislation. About 1/4 of the U.S. population lives in states expected to be affected by the ruling, which struck down a New York gun law. The High Court's first major gun decision in more than a decade split the court 6-3, with the court's conservatives in the majority and liberals in dissent. Across the street from the court, lawmakers at the Capitol sped toward passage of gun legislation prompted by recent massacres in Texas, New York, and California. Senators cleared the way for the measure, modest in the scope, but still the most far-reaching in decades. So big expansion of gun rights coming down. That's something, as it mentioned, that hasn't happened in over a decade, I think it noted. And so again, massive representation of that effect that those new Trump-appointed justices, relatively new Trump-appointed justices, are having on the court. Next, they ruled 2 cases that exemplified the straying away from a strict separation of governmental bodies and religion. So first, reading from CNN, Supreme Court justices on Monday readily put themselves in the shoes of a football coach who wanted to pray at midfield after the game, over those of students who might feel pressure to join him in an expansion decision. Sorry, guys. Let me start that over. Supreme Court justices on Monday readily put themselves in the shoes of a football coach who wanted to pray at midfield after a game, over those of students who might feel pressure to join him. In an expansive decision focused on the suppression of religious voices, the 6-3 ruling against a Washington state school district that suspended coach Joseph Kennedy reinforces a modern court pattern favoring religious conservatives and a greater maligning of church and state. So this is big, and it's the first of 2 recent decisions related to that separation of church and state. So before we get into my thoughts on this, let's just go ahead and look over that second case. The U.S. Supreme Court further reduced the separation of church and state in a ruling on Tuesday, reading from Reuters, endorsing more public funding of religious entities as its conservative justices sided with 2 Christian families who challenged a main tuition assistance program that excluded private religious schools. So why is this significant? Well, one of the things that was laid out in the Constitution is that the government, Congress, cannot establish a national religion. Well, what does that mean in practice? Well, if the government gives preferential treatment, if it gives some sort of endorsement to one particular religion, that is inherently getting in the way of allowing all religions to be treated equal and all people to be able to practice their religion or their lack of religion in whatever way they choose. And so in both of these rulings, you're seeing a little bit of that intermingling where now government paid employees, the coach, and funding is going towards religious schools. And so I want to say, we're going to get into this more later on in the show. There's a Lauren Boebert discussion that she got into about how she's so sick of the discussion around separation of church and state because she thinks it should be all intermingled. But it's so important that we make it clear to people what the significance is of that part of our Constitution and why that's something we have to hold on to and defend. And so it's not that these particular decisions are having this massive effect where now we don't have separation of church and state, this, that, and the other. It's not that. It's that it represents a lessening in how strict the Supreme Court is about drawing that line, that we don't want to cross over any of our state-related stuff with a particular religious practice, because then you're stepping on that part of the Constitution. You're stepping on that idea that you keep the 2 separate so that every individual can practice their religion or their lack thereof in whatever way they choose. So that's kind of the outline, but again, we're going to discuss this a lot more in this upcoming Lauren Boebert story. But to remind you, the part of the Constitution that I'm referencing, quote, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. So that's what people recognize as the separation of church and state idea. And it's odd because sometimes conservatives will point to the phrase separation of church and state and say, that's nowhere in the Constitution. Yes, we understand that. That's not the point. The point is that, as you can see in this part of the Constitution, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Congress / the government should not get involved in the establishment of a religion, because that would be recognizing one religion as more credible, more legitimate than other religions, which gets in the way of free expression of religion, So it's so crucial that we don't allow conservatives to be the only ones pushing on this issue. It is crucial that we respect the separation of church and state, which is what this part of the Constitution lays out. And that's what the concern is with those two recent Supreme Court rulings, is that they're not respecting that to the extent that they should. And then, of course, the ruling over Roe v. Wade. Y'all all know that all too well, but Roe v. Wade, decided many, many years ago, has been precedent. It established a right to the decision about an abortion up to a certain point in the pregnancy. Federally, that has been overturned, so now it is left up to the states, and it just marks another huge conservative slide in that direction of the Supreme Court. And then the most recent ruling, reading from CBS, the Supreme Court on Thursday limited the power of the Environmental Protection Agency, or the EPA, to regulate greenhouse gas emissions from power plants, delivering a significant blow to the Biden administration's efforts to fight climate change. The court divided 6-3 along ideological lines in finding that Congress, through the Clean Air Act, did not grant the EPA the authority to adopt on its own a regulatory scheme to cap carbon dioxide emissions from power plants to combat global warming. Chief Justice John Roberts wrote the majority opinion, while the court's 3-member liberal bloc dissented. So this is unfortunate because it gets in the way of the Biden administration and their efforts to act on climate change, which is concerning. Obviously, it's a massive issue we need to address, and already we're not doing enough. So the fact that the Supreme Court is getting involved and preventing the ability of the Biden administration to take those steps is negative, to say the least, and it's concerning in its representation of that rightward shift. Now, to close, we don't want to be all bummed out, so I would say the main positive thing out of the Supreme Court lately is this one. Ketanji Brown Jackson officially a part of the Supreme Court, and she's going to be an absolute wonderful justice, has great values, great experience, and is very, very qualified. And then, as you know, she'll also be the first black woman to serve on the court, which is amazing as far as representation goes. But again, she's so qualified, and really, I think, upholds the values that you would want in a Supreme Court justice. It won't, however, shift the ideological leanings of the Supreme Court significantly, because she is a liberal justice, and so was Breyer, who she's replacing. But regardless, we have to take our wins when we can get them. All right, let's check in with the comments. What y'all think? Luke, if you don't like Texas law, move back to California. No, I want to live where I want to live. Is it bad video quality? Is that what I'm hearing, guys? Let me see if I can pull up the live stream. It looks okay on my end. Huh. Y'all let me know how it looks. It might be a little grainy. Is that what we're reporting? The EPA looking to close down refineries in the U.S. For air pollution is concerning for increased gas inflation as well. Yeah. Lots of concerning stuff. I'm trying to figure out if there's a way I could change the stream settings to make it looks okay over here. Okay. All right, y'all. Thank you all for being here. We have lots to get into. The broadcast bar does not like me very much, so be warned. That's what he's doing in the chat. Okay. Let's jump into our next story. Ron DeSantis' name keeps being floated as a possible 2024 challenger to Donald Trump in the Republican primary. And when this first started being discussed, it seemed kind of silly because Trump has such an obvious hold over the Republican Party. And you would look at any poll and Trump was dominating. But what people pointed out is that as time went on and as each day passed, DeSantis actually made a lot of strides in closing that gap in the polling between him and Trump. Possible 2024 polls, that is. Now, before we continue with discussing this, I do want to just say Ron DeSantis is bad news. I think he is very, very vile. I think he has bad intentions, just like Trump, and would do a lot of damage as president. So this is not, let's root for Ron DeSantis to beat Trump or root for Trump to beat DeSantis. Either way, it's going to be bad. You could make arguments for why either might have a worse effect. And here's what I mean by that. Ron DeSantis might have a better chance of beating a Democratic nominee because Trump these days is so damaged. So you could say, oh, I want Trump to get the nomination so that we have a better chance of beating him. But then would Trump be more damaging if he got into office, if he did win? Lots of considerations. But point is, we're not really rooting for any of them. We're just checking in on the reality of that situation. So we see that DeSantis just keeps rising in the polls against Trump, and Trump just kind of keeps dropping. Reading from the Washington Examiner, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has closed the gap significantly between himself and Donald Trump in a hypothetical matchup in 2024, bringing him within single digits of the former president. Among registered Republican voters, about 45% said they would vote for Trump compared to 36% who leaned towards DeSantis, according to the most recent YouGov Yahoo News poll. A 9-point difference and the closest any challenger has ever gotten to the former president in a GOP primary poll. The most recent numbers tightened previous polls that showed DeSantis trailing by 16 points in February and 23 points the month before that. So you can see 36% to 45%. Trump is still in a significant lead, but each time we check in on these polls, DeSantis is getting closer and closer. So while if these polls represented the votes cast and the election happened today, Trump would become the nominee, right? But there seems to be a momentum shift in DeSantis' direction, and that's what we're looking at. But then something that made news is in a hypothetical 2024 New Hampshire poll, Republican primary voters say, and again, New Hampshire is one of those early important primary states, so it is actually more representative of political leanings, the possible political outcomes that we're predicting than just any old random state. An interesting poll came out of there. Reading from MSNBC, a new University of New Hampshire Granite State poll shows Florida Governor Ron DeSantis neck and neck with former President Donald Trump among likely Republican presidential primary voters in New Hampshire, with DeSantis receiving the support of 39% of respondents and Trump 37%. So DeSantis is beating Trump in this New Hampshire Republican primary voters poll. That is insane. The 2% gap falls within the poll's margin of error, which means they're effectively tied. It's a massive leap for DeSantis, who is trailing Trump 18% to 43% in the same poll in October. It went from 18% to 43% to DeSantis winning and then being effectively tied. That is massive. And part of the reason for this is, of course, DeSantis has been getting a lot of national attention for the radical stuff that he's been doing in Florida, but also Trump is getting, further and further characterized as a massive threat to democracy each day as information comes out of these January 6th committee hearings. And we're seeing some political shifts because of the hearings in regard to Donald Trump, people believing he's responsible for January 6th, people believing, even Republicans, some of them shifting their view on if he should be held criminally responsible. So that's having a massive effect as well. Taking a look at this, an ABC News Ipsos poll released last week suggested a slight increase in the percentage of Americans and Republicans who thought Trump should face criminal charges. That's a big opinion to change a big stance to change your opinion on, I should say. 58% overall and 19% among Republicans. So 58% of the country believes Trump should be held criminally responsible for his actions trying to overturn the election. And 19%, 20% of Republicans say they think he should be held criminally responsible. But what's interesting is, as the Post's Philip Bump wrote, those numbers were up from previous Washington Post ABC News polls asking the same question shortly after the insurrection and again in April 2022, when only 1 in 10 Republicans thought Trump should be charged. So it went from 1 in 10 to 19, about doubled. So it went from 10% to almost 20%. The amount of Republicans who think Trump should be held criminally responsible, should be criminally charged for his actions on and leading up to January 6th. That's huge. And that amount of shift can be a huge indicator that people are going to start looking for a different Republican candidate within the Republican Party. And that person looks like it's going to be Ron DeSantis. So this is not to say that Trump has no chance in 2024. He's still winning in national polling significantly. So as of now, he still has control of the party. But he has collected in the last few months a lot of baggage because the January 6th committee has done a really good job of reaching out to the broader population of America who's less engaged with politics and showing them this information about Trump and revealing about how much of a threat he is to democracy. And that's going to play a huge role in if Republicans feel comfortable nominating him. Because even if you don't necessarily think that Trump is responsible or you don't think that Trump is terrible, as a Republican, you might think, but a lot of the country does because of the January 6th hearings and all the information around that. So I'm going to pick DeSantis because he seems safer. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think Trump, DeSantis, 2024, who do you think would be more dangerous to the country? Who do you think would have a better chance of beating a Democrat? And how does that play into your calculus? As well as just who do you think is more likely to get the nomination for the Republican presidential candidate? All right, let's check in with the comments. What you thinking? Don't forget to send in super chats so that I do not forget to read yours. You're doing a great job, said ABCD. Thank you so much. Thank you to all y'all. Genuinely, I love seeing you guys in the comments. Luke, make Texas turn blue. Yeah, doing my best. Oh my gosh. Wild, wild stuff. Thank you. You guys liked my coverage for Pac-Man? Good to hear. I had a great time doing it. All right. Let's go ahead. We're just flying through stories today. Let me read a little bit more comments. Trump seems so unhealthy and unhinged. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't make it to 2024. That's what I would believe, but he seems to just keep on chugging, you know? Stacey Abrams needs help. It's tied up. Has a realistic chance to win. I know, yeah. Definitely support all of those important races. 2024. By the way, to anyone who's going to stick around after we're done with the news part of the show and we just get into React content, we're going to be watching an interview that Trump did, a speech that Biden gave, and then some other stuff. That's what I'll be reacting to in part 2 of the show today. So look forward to that. Andrew, hello. I feel like it's been a while since I saw you. Okay, let's jump into our next story. I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with the news channel Newsmax, but it is pretty much a more far-right, more radical Fox News. And there was an interesting thing on Fox News after the January 6th hearings, after the specific testimony from Cassidy Hutchinson, where the daytime hosts, at least, of course we understand the nighttime hosts, those are the more what they call opinion, that's the Tucker Carlsons, the Sean Hannitys, Laura Ingraham, a little more unhinged, a lot more unhinged. But the daytime hosts try to be a little bit more like newsy. And after the testimony from Cassidy Hutchinson, there was an interesting response from them where they really gave credit to the January 6th committee, gave credit to the credibility of Cassidy Hutchinson, and reflected on how bad this looks for Trump. And that's unheard of. Fox News rarely allows criticism to be heard about Donald Trump, about the Republican Party. And so seeing some of these daytime Fox News hosts, specifically Brett Baer, who was reacting right after the testimony was over, really gave an honest telling and an honest response and a reasonable response to that groundbreaking testimony from former Trump staffer Cassidy Hutchinson. What was interesting, though, and the reason why I brought up Newsmax at the beginning of this, is Newsmax, one of their hosts, did this whole segment going after Fox News. So a lot of times, Newsmax, if Fox News takes even a slightly reasonable stance, will attack them to try to get some of their viewers who don't like the more moderated hosts. And that's what we're going to be checking in on today. It's kind of a long clip, but it's very telling of the different segments of the right. You have this really conservative, but somewhat attached to reality block of people like Brett Baer, who, again, conservative guy, but he can look at a testimony from these January 6th hearings and say, yeah, that's pretty damning. That doesn't look great for Donald Trump, and she's coming from a very credible place. But then you have the even more unhinged, the even more far right group of people who, it doesn't matter if the evidence was fed to them, with a spoon, they're going to deny it. And a lot of how this host on Fox News attempts to attack Brett Baer and attack Fox News and attack the witness is telling about how little they really have to make genuine deconstructions of these arguments and of these testimonies. So let's take a look. This is Newsmax host something. I don't know his name. I don't care to know his name, but he's about to talk about Fox News failing to cover for Trump enough.
This is Brett Baer, their head political guy.
This testimony was very compelling from beginning to end. She obviously had access to all of the players. What was so compelling, I think, is how it was laid out.
So this is on Fox News. Pretty crazy. Brett Baer responding right after the testimony like this.
We always point out that there's not a pushback, and it would have been great to hear Jim Jordan or some congressman say some other angle to this, but the testimony in and of itself is really, really powerful.
Compelling. It was laugh out loud funny at times. There's no Jim Jordan there, no Matt Gaetz. How about you, Brett? How about Fox?
Again, it is key to remember that the reason there's no other Republicans besides Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, is because the Republican Party decided not to participate. There was an option presented to them where there would be a split committee and the Republican Party would be heavily involved, and they decided not to do that. That was their decision. So bringing that up like it's some condemnation of the Democrats is silly. And also, as you'll see here, he says it was a joke. We were laughing out loud during the testimony, but doesn't provide any argument, any evidence for why she might not be telling the truth or why it's not believable, why it's funny. He just throws that out. Don't believe him, he says to his audience.
Fox News, use your resources.
Don't believe her, I should say, or Brett Baer.
Get on the phone, blow this junk out of the water where it belonged. More.
Why?
I've covered politics for a long time. I don't think there's been testimony like this that is kind of jaw-dropping in a way on the inside workings of a White House in crisis after, at this moment in January 6th, that we've seen since Watergate.
Since Watergate. He took this 23-year-old seriously since Watergate. Well, it shows me he doesn't know much about Watergate. He doesn't seem to know much about politics. I think what he's talking about is office politics. I'm pretty sure Brett has a real handle on the office politics.
Again, he's making so many thesis statements without any arguments below it. There's no body to his essay. He just keeps saying, oh, wow, he believed a 23-year-old. He shouldn't have done that. Why? She was super close to all of the people involved in this. Why would we not believe her? And I don't think she's 23. I think she's 26 or 27, maybe 25. you can see there's no argument to be made. It's just we shouldn't believe them because they're going after Trump and we don't like that. Boo-hoo. And then to him saying it's a dumb statement to make that this is the most groundbreaking type scandal since Watergate is insane. No, that is a very reasonable thing to say. Watergate related to a president miking, bugging the opposing party's headquarters to try to get information about their plans. Is that more significant than a president trying to stay in power unconstitutionally, unlawfully, denying election results? I think the latter is actually more significant. So great point by Boebert.
Now, President Trump, of course, defended himself. We know President Trump, right? We know what he's done. We know what he's been through. We know what he stands for. Whose side did they take at Fox News as far as credibility? Who has credibility?
This is all team sport talk. We're on, we know Trump. We love Trump. Which side did he take? That's not relevant. You should look at the facts and take the side of the truth. Don't care who's involved. Just look at the actual evidence that they're showing you. Look at the credibility of the evidence, then make up your mind. He's just appealing to which team are you on. Boebert's not on that team.
After yesterday, take a look.
He questions her accuracy. He goes after her directly, says he doesn't know who she is, and said he didn't lunge at the Secret Service agent in the Beast.
Look at the headline at the bottom here. You can't see it because this popped up, but it says they are taking her. This is the Newsmax bottom third. They're taking her word over Trump's. Question mark, question mark, question mark. As if they're taking this credible former Trump staffer. I'm not saying she's credible generally. I'm saying the circumstances in which she's in make it to where the main incentive for her, even if it was just out of self-interest, would be to tell the truth right now. And so pretending like it's insane to take her word over Trump's, who all of his incentives would be to lie to protect himself, is absurd.
That didn't happen. He says he didn't throw his lunch against the wall. That didn't happen, and that she's lying. Cassidy Hutchinson is under oath on Capitol Hill. The president is on Truth Social.
Wow.
Great point. This is a point I've heard multiple commentators make, as well as right there and in other contexts. Okay, you want to claim that she's lying? Okay, you say you have other people who have other interpretations of those events? All right, she's under oath. You're not. You're, truthing out on Truth Social. Go under oath and then refute her points. Because it takes courage for her to go under oath and say these things, knowing that if it got proven false, she would be held legally responsible for that. Whereas just spouting off on social media doesn't have any repercussions for you if you're lying.
After everything we've seen, the phony Russia hoax, the two crazy impeachments, he's taking the side of this Cassidy because she held up her right arm at a hearing, at another phony baloney hearing. How many people have we seen do that? Vindman, Michael Cohen. I mean, these things are...
How many people have we seen come out and talk about how unhinged and dangerous Trump is? God.
Ludicrous. We all saw Donald Trump raise his right hand, didn't we? When he became president. I know he lived up to his oath. So back to Brett.
Oh my gosh. He's going to have to go to a literal surgeon to remove his lips from Trump's butt. That's crazy.
What's happening over there? Well, I did notice that Chris Wallace is gone, right? He moved to CNN. Do they need a new Chris Wallace? Hey, what about Chris Wallace? He is at CNN, and he's still Chris Wallace.
What?
Can we talk about Cassidy Hutchinson? First of all, I bow to, particularly to you, Andy, as somebody involved in prosecutions. She was a great witness. She was absolutely precise.
Yep, still Chris Wallace, absolutely. All right, so we know he's okay.
Okay, that's all we'll look at. So again, no argument, no refutations in a meaningful way about what she actually said. All it is going out after them personally, laughing at what they say without attaching any sort of explanation for why it's funny. I don't know how they get away with this. Like, if I was reporting on something where someone who is more on my team, if you want to put it in that way, like he is more on Trump's team, was being possibly exposed for terrible actions. So let's say that I'm in that position and you hop on and my only explanation is just to call people dumb without, he didn't call them dumb, but like that vibe. Oh, you can't trust them. Why? Because you can't trust them. Oh, she's not credible. Why? Because she's not credible. Oh, Fox News isn't taking the side of Trump, but Trump's so amazing, so we should all take the side of him. That would not be convincing to anyone who watches my show or most shows, but for somehow, this is all a lot of right-wing viewers need to go home, or not go home, to sit at home and feel okay about themselves and about the fact that they support someone who was okay letting our democracy die for his own gain. All right, comments check in. What have y'all been saying? I think Cassidy's looking out for herself. She's under pressure and wants to run for office. Why would she run? Doesn't seem likely, but to me, all the incentives make sense to, for why she would go and tell the truth. She understands she was really involved in the inner circle of an administration that was trying to stay in power unlawfully. And so the best thing for her would be to tell the truth so that she's protected, so that she's now on the side of the truth and the people standing for the actual democratic process and the Constitution, both in the history books and in the immediate, so that she's not held criminally responsible. What the incentives would be for someone who's a lifelong Republican, who's very conservative, who is very loyal to Trump, to just like tell up random lies all of a sudden doesn't make any sense to me. Who heard of her before this hearing? Yeah, nobody, but now everyone knows her, and liberals, what are they going to do? Vote for her? No, she's a massive Trumper. She used to be. So like, she's hugely conservative. So they don't have any interest. They just respect what she did in this one moment. And then MAGA hates her and the Republicans hate her. So she's just kind of alienated. She's getting tons of death threats. Her life is threatened every single day now. So I don't think this is like a clout move for her. Yes, I agree, Benjamin. She showed courage coming forward for sure. All right, let's go ahead and jump into our last story. Congresswoman Lauren Boebert. She's an interesting one. She has not the best understanding, not the greatest understanding of our Constitution or the intentions of the founding fathers, because she was at a church giving a speech and said she's just so darn sick of the separation of church and state, which of course is a foundational, important part of our Constitution and a part of our country's history and our current country's systems. And so it is so important that we protect the separation of church and state so that all people can express their religion or their lack thereof in whatever way they choose. Let's take a look at what she said and then we'll discuss.
The reason we had so many overreaching regulations in our nation is because the church complied. The church is supposed to direct the government. The government is not supposed to direct the church. That is not how our founding fathers intended it. And I'm tired of this separation of church and state junk that's not in the Constitution. It was in a stinking letter, and it means nothing like what they say it does.
Interesting take there, Lauren. So, of course, it is in our Constitution. The words separation of church and state are not, but as we looked at previously in the show, we'll look at again now, this is in our Constitution. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. What does that mean? The government cannot give support, favorability, establishment to one particular religion, because then definitionally that would get in the way of people expressing whichever religion they want or none in whatever way they choose, right? Because if the government sets up one or supports one in particular, that is giving that one more power, that one more significance, that one more legitimacy than all the other ones. And in a country that has freedom of religion, that can't be allowed. So what she was talking about, that was just in some letter. Well, when you look back into the writings of the founding fathers and all of the people involved in that time and coming up with these concepts, they explained this concept of separation of church and state. The words aren't in there, but that's the concept. We're shortening down, because every single time I make the point of separation of church and state, I don't have to say this entire little blurb. It's not that long, but Congress shall make no, like, instead you can just sum it up with a title: separation of church and state, instead of having to read Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, right? Specifically, this comes from the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. Separation of church and state is a phrase that refers to the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. The phrase dates back to early days of U.S. history, and Thomas Jefferson referred to the First Amendment as creating a wall of separation between church and state as the third president of the U.S. The term is also often employed in court cases. So she was wrong on both fronts, saying the Constitution doesn't, I mean, in a very, very, very narrow sense, she was correct that the Constitution doesn't say separation of church and state, but to pretend the Constitution doesn't convey that idea is absolutely absurd. And then saying the founding fathers didn't intend to have separation of church and state is also absurd, as we just saw there. That was their intention. We can't have a country where the government gives more respect, more power, more legitimacy to one religion over any other, or one religion over individuals who practice no religion. Because the only way you can have a true free expression is if there's no hindrance of your ability to do that. And I can tell you, Lauren Boebert's religion, running the entire government, telling the government what to do, would cause a hindrance for every other person's religion. How they don't understand that baffles my mind. And how they feel so comfortable out in the open to say, I'm so sick of this crucial part of the Constitution. I'm so sick of separation of church and state. But no, in the First Amendment, right next to freedom of speech, we talk about freedom of religion. And the only way you maintain freedom of religion is to remove/prevent the government from getting in the way of that freedom that people have. And so a lot of these, specifically Christians in the country right now that are more conservative, right-wing Christians, this is not all Christians, but a particular group of Christians believe, no, my version of Christianity should rule over all of your lives and all of your own religious beliefs. And that's where we see the government should punish homosexuality. The government should... Why? Oh, because of my religious beliefs. But why would your religious beliefs govern everyone else in our country? That doesn't make any sense. And you can even get more specific, just among Christians. Okay, so let's say we agree to Christianity ruling, she said the church should tell the government what to do. All right, which church? Which version of the church? Because there's like a gazillion little sects of Christianity. Should we give it to the Catholic Church? Should Baptists? Even Baptists disagree with each other significantly. Presbyterians? Like, who are we giving it to? Because you're saying the church needs to tell the government what to do. Which church? Because there's tons of divisions just within the one religion that you subscribe to. The one general umbrella term, Christianity. So answer that. And you can't answer that, and that is what highlights the importance of having separation of church and state, where the state protects, through their lack of establishing one religion, all people's ability to either practice whatever religion they choose or not to practice any religion at all. How that's hard for her to understand, I really don't comprehend, and I hope she can go to a little Constitution class to resolve that for herself. Alrighty. That is that's the Lauren Boebert moment right there, ladies and gentlemen. Adam Kinzinger tweeted about Boebert's comment, "There's no difference between this and the Taliban. We oppose the Christian Taliban. I say this as a Christian." Totally agree. The church can't be telling the government what to do. That's absurd. I don't know how that's even... how, like, they're coming out in the open saying this these days. It's bizarre. Before, that would have gotten you... I don't know if it would have, but it should get you laughed out of the room at any point. That would be like saying... I should be... me and my social club should be able to tell you what speech falls under freedom of speech. Like, I get to determine what is freedom of speech. You're just taking a crucial part of the Constitution and spitting all over it. It's wild. All right, let's pull up this Newsmax interview. Speaking of Newsmax... boom, 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 boom. Oh, let me. Do not forget, if you want to support the show and get your comment read in the most appreciative way possible, send in a super chat. Super quick, simple, hopefully. And greatly appreciated. Let me see where I find this. I know I saw it somewhere. Ew. It's a fetus commercial. That is compelling. What the heck? Y'all let me know if I get gross and shiny. I can go clean it up. It's too hot in here. I don't know if this is an ad that will then skip to the Trump interview. Here, let me just show y'all what I'm doing so you're not confused. But stick with me because we have a shocking Trump interview to get to. I don't want to hear this though, but
People giving 5-star reviews to Super Beets Heart Chews because Super Beets are nature's heart-healthy secret. A delicious way
You
of
think
getting the
Newsmax would shut me
antioxidants
down?
you need to support your circulation and enjoy more healthy energy without caffeine. That's why Super Beets is America's #1 beet brand of circulation superfoods.
It's plant-based, there's no caffeine in it, and I
This
can
is
take
so
something that
long.
I know is just giving me a totally different kind of energy.
My blood pressure is even more healthy. I'm loving it.
Inspired by the
oh
Nobel
wait, no.
Prize-winning
This is live, guys. Never mind. This is not what we're looking for. I'm gonna find this. I'm determined. Trump interview Newsmax. Come on. Is this the full thing? It just keeps taking me to their darn live stream. I don't want to watch a Newsmax live stream. Ick.
Jersey Golf Club, his first interview since the explosive
There we
January
go.
6 hearing testimony from Cassidy Hutchinson on
Okay. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen.
afternoon. I sat down with former President Donald Trump at his New Jersey Golf Club, his first interview since the explosive January 6 hearing testimony from Cassidy Hutchinson on Tuesday. Take a look. It's been an interesting couple of days, Mr. President. The January 6th committee yesterday.
You know what? I could make this into a segment. Let's start it over one more time and let me record. Donald Trump gave his first interview. He's been doing lots of activity, lots of screaming on Truth Social, but this is his first chance to respond in a television format, and he went to Newsmax, the more radical version of Fox News, to do it. So we will be reacting to that right now.
Since the explosive January 6 hearing testimony from Cassidy Hutchinson on Tuesday. Take a look. It's been an interesting couple of days, Mr. President. The January 6 committee yesterday holding a special session with what they're calling apparently.
I feel like that guy's too normal and handsome looking for Newsmax.
Some new evidence. They had a junior staffer, Cassidy Hutchinson, 26 years old. She made some wild secondhand accusations about you.
Crazy.
What'd you make of that?
I thought it was absolutely crazy. This committee is, a lot of people say, illegally formed. But when you look at what they're doing, and when you look at what they're saying and what they're doing to the country.
What could possibly be illegal about their forming of the committee? Really quickly, Larry, how do I say your name? Quartowitz? Sent in a super chat. Thank you so much, Larry. He said, whoa, you added super chat. Awesome. Much love, Luke. Much love right back at you, Larry. You're amazing. And yes, we got super chat up and running now. And then Andrew D'Angelo also sent in a super chat. Thank you so much. He said, I don't think folks should be judging each other as ignorant or fat or anything like this. Great show, man, and congrats on the super chats. Thank you so much. You're amazing, Andrew. I've talked with Andrew a couple times over on the live stream over Discord, and he is a very awesome guy. Thank you again for the super chat. And I agree, judging people in condescending and not productive language is definitely not something that helps grow our movement or move our discussions forward. I agree with you.
Now, the good news is a lot of people aren't watching. A lot of people aren't listening to it. But they're trying to do real harm. We went through Russia. We went through Ukraine. We went through the Mueller report, no collusion after 3 years, 2.5 years. And now we're going through this. It's a one-way sideshow. It's a horrible thing that they can do to the country where they take this kind of time. They don't talk about making America great anymore. All they do is investigate everybody. And it's a terrible, terrible thing.
It's so interesting. If someone made false accusations against me, my response would be, oh my gosh, she was lying. Let me tell you why. I was never like in this place at this time, but you should ask this person because they were with me and they've never seen me throw a plate. Like, you know what I mean? You can ask the agent who said I choked him, blah, 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 or who she said I choked. Instead, his response is, yeah, that's crazy, but they're doing another hoax in Russia, and all of this and squirrel, which is such a disingenuous way to respond if it really was a false accusation.
Lady yesterday, there's something wrong with her? Is there something wrong? She said, I jumped from a car and I started strangling. Think of this. I started strangling a Secret Service agent who I know very well. I grabbed the steering wheel of a car that said that I wanted guns at my rally. I didn't want guns. I have to speak too, and I don't want guns for anybody.
Did you grab the steering wheel? Is there any truth
to that? Of course not.
Is that ridiculous?
In fact, the Secret Service came out and said that this story is totally false.
Yeah.
The woman is living in fantasy land. She's a social climber, if you call that social. I think it's just...
As everyone's saying, if you really believe that there are other people who would refute her telling of these events, have them go under oath, just like she did, okay? Because before that, you're way less legitimate. She went under oath. You haven't. All these people you say who disagree with her haven't. So let's hear it. Come on. Have them testify. The January 6th hearings would love it.
A shame.
Or the January 6th committee would love it, I should say.
This is happening to our country. And we don't have any Republicans up there to dispute it. We have one who quit, Kinzinger, and we have another one who's down by 35 points in Wyoming. She's a total disaster. She's a train wreck. But think of it. Nobody to cross-examine. Professor Dershowitz said you can't do where you have a hearing and there's no cross-examination. This would have been the easiest cross-examination anywhere. We have one. And they put her on, And they don't even confirm it with the Secret Service. The Secret Service people in the car said this didn't happen. But you don't even need that. Who would do that? I would grab a Secret Service person by the throat.
I don't even know if it's possible. Certainly not in the Beast.
It's very hard.
Even in one of the SUVs.
Well, it's very hard for another reason. These guys lift 350 pounds.
Right, right. I saw you get out of the SUV tonight. It seemed like it was pretty smooth.
That doesn't, none of what he's saying is related to him getting mad and reaching. It's not to say that you would have physically dominated the Secret Service agent. It's to say that you were so mad that you were physically taking actions to try to express that anger. This has nothing to do with what the accusations are.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I mean, but, you know, these are people. These are great people. These are great people. They've devoted their lives to it. And I think they were very embarrassed by it because it makes them sound terrible.
Tony Ornato and Bobby Engel.
They're great. I know them very well.
Sterling.
They are sterling. And I was very nice that they came to my defense. I thought it was incredible, actually, because, you know, some whack job can say this stuff and get away with it, and other things that I wanted guns at my rally. Okay, now I'm speaking. Why would I want guns? I don't want.
Well, because allegedly you said that you know they weren't, or you knew they weren't there for you.
People standing with guns in my rally.
I don't remember seeing any AR-15s at the Capitol.
Well, she wasn't complaining.
JT, I'm excited to see what they have to say then. I meant to mention to you, JT, I'm happy you're in the chat. I saw your emails and haven't had a chance to look at them. The last 2 weeks has been absolutely insane, but I'm definitely gonna look at them and report back what I find. So I'm not ignoring them, I should say.
And the other thing about this woman, she wanted to work for me after January 6th. She was a big Trump fan. She wanted to work for me in Florida, and we chose not to bring her down because I got very bad things. I hardly knew her. And I said, well, if she's no good, I got somebody called up, numerous people, that she's not good. I won't say why that she's not good, but plenty of reasons.
Why?
I'm not going to say that, but I'm going to say that she was not respected by the people in the White House. So they thought she shouldn't go down. I was going down to Florida with a group of people, great group of people, patriots, and her name was thrown out there, and they said, stay away from her. They said bad things about her. And then I see her, and I hardly know who she is. And then I see this woman.
That's such a dumb point. He keeps making it. Just because you don't know who a person is doesn't mean that they weren't around you and close enough to witness these events. Does that make sense? As the president, you walk around with a massive entourage all the time, tons of staffers managing your day-to-day who are intimately aware of each action that you take. Doesn't mean you're aware of who they are. That is the most obvious thing about being that big of a figure, and the reality of how many people are around you witnessing what you're doing and in those conversations and such.
Getting up, and she's making up stories one after another. But the craziest of all was that I tried to commandeer, I think they used that word, I tried to commandeer a car with Secret Service agents telling them to take us down to the Capitol. It was totally false, and that a person can get away with it. And then I watch the Times and the Washington Post, and I get reviews on MSDNC and CNN. They hardly even talk about the fact that she's been totally discredited. So it's a very sad thing that this is allowed to take place in our country, that somebody can just get there without cross-examination, with no Republicans on the committee, which I think was a mistake.
Something I've mentioned a bunch of times, that was the Republicans' choice, not the Democrats.
I think we should have had Republicans on the committee.
Jim Banks, Jim Jordan.
I think they should do something. Is this going to go on forever? Is this going to just keep going on and on? They get one person. They have to ask her, why did she want to go so badly with the Trump organization to Florida? She was all set to go, and then we determined that we didn't want her.
Do you think those Secret Service agents will get the opportunity to testify?
I hope they do. I hope they can testify. I think the woman...
Yeah, Larry, the gish gallop. It's funny, whenever he does an interview, the interviewer, and look at this photo in the backdrop, that is too much. Oh my gosh. The interviewer barely gets to say anything. It's like they'll ask the first question, and then he talks for the entire interview without getting interrupted once.
Woman is, she's got serious problems, let me put it that way.
What did you make of Fox
Mental
News?
problems.
Yeah, what did you make of Fox News and other media outlets latching onto this story? I heard Brett Baer last night say, well, why would she risk perjury. She could go to jail. And I'm sitting there at home thinking to myself, well, this is a Democratic panel. They're not going to charge their own star witness with perjury, even if it is true.
I heard that Brett Baer said that, which is obviously strange. You know, I look, Brett Baer. Here's the story. It didn't happen. Other things didn't happen. They said that I encouraged people to have guns. I didn't encourage people. Never spoke to anybody about it.
Right.
I didn't encourage anybody to have guns. And I'm one of the speakers. I don't want people out there with guns for me either.
Right.
But I don't want, maybe more importantly, for other people to get hurt. I don't want that to happen. You look at the fact that we had, I recommended from 10 to 20,000 troops be there. Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of D.C. turned it down.
Yeah.
All of these things took place. They turned it down.
We're not hearing about that during these hearings.
They don't even cover it. They refuse to mention it. You'll never see it. You rarely see it in the fake news. Think of it. If they put not 10,000 troops or 20,000 troops, I recommend it between 10 and 20,
right,
in front of numerous witnesses, in front of people, and in front of the people that actually do that. So if we would have had not 10,000 troops, but 500.
We're yet to get any evidence that he was trying to prepare for that day as far as troops and extra safety precautions. That just has not been borne out in any of the available evidence except for just the claims he makes about it.
Any proportion of that, you wouldn't have January 6th, as it is called.
I love how you guys, so many of you will say like, Luke, why are we watching this? It's so stupid. This person's so stupid. And it's like, I hear you. Number one, he's one of the most powerful people in the country still based on his influence. And he leads a massive political cult. But then also, if I'm going to live stream for like 2 hours, 3 hours every single day, what do you want me to do the entire time? Like, I prep 4 to 5 stories. You know, it's not like they're all about these individuals y'all don't like to hear from. So sometimes we got to check in and watch content that interests people, like an interview with Trump, you know? But then we also watch old debates and all that type of stuff. But it cracks me up when people get on to me like that. It's like a lot of hours to fill with content, so I just kind of got to grab onto whatever's circulating that day.
Even existed, there wouldn't have been a problem. They didn't like the look of it. They said, well, we don't like the look of it. And I could feel there was a big crowd forming. It just felt like a lot of people were talking about January 6th. And the thing they don't talk about is the incredible size of the group of people that I spoke to. Because I think it was the biggest, or certainly one of the biggest groups I've ever spoken before. And I've spoken to big crowds, like...
Oh, no, Andrew, I know you don't mean to disrespect. Lots of people say that almost every time I'm live streaming. At least one person will say, like, why are we watching this? And so I was just making a general point. Like, if y'all want to send me stuff, everyone, you know, my email is available, lukebeasleyofficial@gmail.com, that you want me to do during the live stream, like react to, then great, I'm up for it, as long as it's something I think most of the audience will be interested in. But then I do think it's really important to hear what misinformation he's putting out so that we can know how to address / oppose this part of the country, this group.
Few people have spoken to bigger, and this was, I think, at the top of the list or very close to it. And from there, a small group, relatively speaking, a small group went down to the Capitol. But for this girl to sit there and just, I think, just make up stories. You know, many years ago, there was a man named John Lovitz, and he did a routine called The Liar.
Yeah.
She should look at it. She should look at it.
That's SNL. How much of this is about trying to prevent you from running again?
Oh, I think a lot of
in
it
2024.
Is, yeah. I'm leading.
Does he think that he's like any form of journalist or interviewer? What is this? This is just pitiful. Hey, thank you so much for sitting down with hard-hitting news station Newsmax. My name's Luke Beasley. Starting off with the first question for Mr. Sir Beautiful Donald Trump. What is it like being so amazing? Okay, next question. How do you do it? Okay, next question. People are so rude to you. Okay, next question. Like, what is this?
In all the polls.
Every poll.
Against Republicans and Democrats. I'm leading in the Republican polls at numbers that nobody's ever even seen before. And against Biden and anybody else that they run, I'm leading against them. Now, this is just a way of, look at the dishonesty of this committee. They don't talk about any of the things that refute January 6th.
40-year-old, oh, he's a 40-year-old version.
They don't talk about the election numbers. They don't analyze the election. The people were there because the election was rigged and stolen. So what they should be doing is trying to convince people that it wasn't. You do that through analyzing the numbers. They don't want to do that. In fact, they don't even want to hear that. And Fox doesn't put it on. And by the way, you people don't put it on either. You're afraid of being sued or something. I don't know. Someday you'll have to explain that.
This is 2000.
In fact, they'll probably cut what I'm saying out right now out of Newsmax.
No, of course not. This will be on Wake Up America tomorrow morning, sir. Absolutely not.
But get it done fast.
I will not allow that.
Get it done fast before Chris sees it, okay? But they might cut it out, and let's just see. I hope they put it on. But this was about a rigged and stolen election that millions and millions of people felt is true. I saw a number, I think it was 78% of the Republican Party felt that. That's a big thing. And if that's the case, and by the way...
Yes, that big of the country, that big of a population of the country believes, that large, I should say, of a percentage of the country believes that because you spewed those lies and they follow your every move and you've been spewing it for years. Yes, lots of people can believe lies. Can you imagine? And the election has been looked at by every independent organization, by all of these states, by every media organization. Inside, out, backwards, forwards. We have looked at the election data, buddy. You lost. That's the bottom line, and there wasn't fraud that had any effect on the election. Any, notable effect on the election like you claim it did. So, yes, we concluded on that point. Now, we're moving on to, with that in mind, the hearings are now understanding how damaging it was because we understand the election wasn't stolen, that you were doing these things based on that lie.
By the way, large numbers of Democrats and very large numbers of independents. So if that's the case, nobody wants to have a country where they think the elections are rigged and stolen, so they should be going over and analyzing the numbers. The reason they don't do it is they can't win. Because we have, if you look at 2,000 mules, if you look at the ballot stuffing, if you look at all of these different things that we have, many, many different things that we have, you look at all of the affidavits by the thousands, you take a look at it, you can't lose that. The one thing they don't want to talk about when they talk about silencing, the one thing they don't want to talk about are the election results because they can't win. The judges were afraid of it. Everybody's afraid of it. Your network's afraid of it. Fox is afraid of it. They don't want to talk about the election results. And that's the thing they should be talking about because our country...
Maybe they don't want to talk about it because if they actually try to explain what evidence there is for an election, for the election being stolen, it's going to be so clear and apparent they don't have any evidence. Maybe that's why they don't bring it up.
We should feel that we have safe and secure elections. Say it.
Do you think we should still be talking about it? Just because I think there is so much more that we can talk about.
No, I
maybe
agree.
with that, maybe in conjunction. But what's happened, sir?
But you don't want it to happen again.
I couldn't agree more. And what's happened in the last 18 months, I didn't envision it. Your last day in office, 1.4% inflation. Election day 2020, gas is $2.39 a gallon. It's $5 a gallon now. This happened, Jimmy Carter, it took him 4 years to ruin the economy. It's taken Joe Biden 17 months.
It's terrible. And by the way, I agree with you.
Does anyone understand how economics works? We had an economic crash. When you come out of that and your government has to spend a bunch, all the supply chains get whacked out, and then companies use that as an excuse to jack up the prices, those three components are gonna cause inflation. That's gonna happen after you come out of an economic crash. That's just what happens, ladies and gentlemen. You know how quickly we bounced out of that? We went from, boom, unemployment went super high, stock market crashed, wages, people lost their jobs. I just said that. But the GDP went down. Okay. And then instantly we went back up. Low unemployment, all those. So that's going to come with all sorts of issues. Now your economy's running again and it wasn't running previously. And so now you have all these supply chain issues because production can't go extreme in either direction like that. And then on top of that, companies use this expectation of inflation to jack up the prices even further. A great example of this is when crude oil barrel prices were at what they are today, what they are today, gas prices were in the $3.70, $3.80 realm. Does that make sense? And now they're in the $5 realm. Same crude oil price, but companies are charging way more for it. So whenever you go into a massive economic crisis, when you come out of it, there's going to be lots of kinks to work out. You can't just bounce in and out of bad economic times, there's going to be issues that are created. That's just what happens. And a lot of those were created under Trump and then are having to be dealt with under Biden. I'm not blaming Trump. The pandemic was going to cause economic problems no matter what. He could have handled it better, but still, let's set that aside. I'm not blaming him fully at all. What I am saying is a global pandemic that F's up all of the processes we have to run our global economy, it's not just going to snap and everything's going to be perfect back on. So you're lucky you lost the election, Trump, so that you can pretend that it's Biden's fault, because otherwise you would have been in power and it would have been just as bad.
I agree. I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about it, but people have to recognize what happened. And because of that, and because of what happened, our country's a mess. We had more energy than anybody. And now we're asking Saudi Arabia to send us oil, please. We're asking Venezuela, unthinkable, send us oil. We need your oil. We have it under, I call it liquid gold. We have it under our feet.
Right.
We were energy independent. We were soon.
What he means by that, we were still exporting and importing, but we were producing enough. We were producing as much as we were consuming. That's what he means by energy independent. That doesn't mean you could just turn off the faucet of imported oil, because a bunch of things go into why the import-export is beneficial for both countries. But we export oil to other countries and then we import to make up the difference. Excuse me. And so now we're doing it again. We're producing tons of oil, enough that if we completely changed the global oil economy, then we could, produce as much as we're consuming. Like, we are producing as much as we're consuming, I should say. So we're energy independent in the way that he brags about. But there's issues because we have our whole consumption market set up where we need that imported oil as of now. And it's really beneficial for a bunch of reasons. But that has caused a lot of problems with the Russia situation and other reasons as well, OPEC and that junk. So I hate this point, because when I talk to conservatives, I'm like, what did you like about Trump? Oftentimes they'll bring up like, he made us energy independent. I'm like, so do you give Biden credit for that being the case again? What? That's not the case.
Going to be energy dominant, bigger than Saudi Arabia and Russia combined within a very short period of time. So when I see that, but it all happened because of a bad election.
So does that mean 2024, 2.5 years from now? You haven't said anything. You hinted Saturday night in Mendon, Illinois. Are Melania and Barron on board with a possible run again in 2.5 years?
Well, they love our country and they hate to see what's happening. So at the right time, I'll be saying what I want to do. But they do. They love our country, both. Barron's a young man.
Yep.
And Melania is a first lady who is really loved.
Yes.
I will say
Yes.
that.
Yep.
I see the signs. We love our first lady.
Mm-hmm.
But they love our country, so I think they'll do what has to be done
Could you
if we
envision
decide
a world,
to go that way.
Could you envision a world, sir, where there is a Trump-DeSantis ticket in 2024?
Well, I get along with him. I was very responsible for his success because I endorsed him and he went up like a rocket ship.
Thank you so much to, is it Salim? Salim Mahdi? I probably butchered that, but thank you so much for the super chat. You are absolutely amazing. He said in the super chat, if voting Democrat accomplishes next to nothing and voting Republican creates chaos with clowns like this one in power, what's the point of voting? Well, easy. Number one, Democrats next to nothing means something, so they're doing something. And also, I would rather the status quo than sliding into fascism. So that's the answer on that. And if we don't vote, even though it's discouraging that not enough gets done when we vote for Democrats, if we don't vote, we're giving the power to Republicans. So we are in some way voting for them to have a better chance through our lack of action to be in power and cause that chaos that you're talking about.
Just like I endorsed Mary Miller the other day, who supposedly was not going to win, and she won.
She won.
Just like Darren Bailey is doing great. He just won.
Yep.
I think he's going to beat Pritzker, one of the worst governors of the country.
The Democrats apparently wanted that race. Several of these
They
races.
say that.
They're
yeah.
missing something.
No, they like to say that. They always like to say that. They take somebody that's doing well and they say, he's the one we want. It's called disinformation. Just like Russia, Russia, Russia. It's disinformation.
Right.
They said it about Mastriano, who's great. Mastriano in Pennsylvania. They said, oh, it was obvious. I endorsed him. It was obvious he was going to win. And they said it about him in Pennsylvania. Oh, we want him. They don't want him. It's just the opposite. But they say we want him or we want Bailey. And that's not the way it works. But I think we're going to have some tremendous candidates and some very successful candidates.
Just final question. Would you support Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu running again in Israel?
Well, I was disappointed with him in certain ways, but overall I liked him very much. And yeah, I would, if he ran, I would certainly give it some thought. We'll see what happens. I don't know that that's going to happen. He disappointed me in certain ways, but he also did a very good job in other ways.
Mr. President, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Red.
There we go. Nothing too shocking. He didn't really have a good refutation of all of the accusations against him in those hearings. But that's all right. Okay. We are going to take a look at a speech that Biden gave. Let's see. At a NATO summit where he addressed different things. He held a press conference, I should say. So this will be interesting. He addresses some of the recent stuff. But like, the issue is he's not acting with the urgency that this moment calls for. That's the big issue. But let's take a look. Really?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you.
Weird audio.
If you have a seat, please sit down. I think someone else walked in the room.
I don't like that audio. Let's see if there's a better one.
I think we can all agree that this has been a historic NATO summit.
So quiet.
Some of the folks have been covering me for a while. About a year and a half ago, when the first G7 meeting took place in England, I talked about the need for us to reconsider the...
Oh, Jared Frank, my man, sending in a super chat. Thank you so much. Any idea what forensic audit went on in Arizona on Monday? A Facebook friend of mine posted that the evidence was finally coming, but I haven't seen a recap. The evidence is always coming, Jared. No, I have not seen much about that. And then another super chat by Salim. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Amazing. You guys are just filling my heart with joy, love, and happiness. What I see is that even with Democrats having majority in the Senate and Congress as well as the presidency, Republicans still hold most power. I hear what you're saying. Can I crank the volume? I know he's so quiet. What the heck? But I can't. It's all the way maxed out here. All the way maxed out on my computer. I don't know. So Republicans are better at wielding power. So I agree with you in that sense. But there is a profound difference between when what Republicans could do while they're in power versus what Democrats do while they're in power. Because at least if Democrats attempt to go in the correct direction, even though they fail miserably time and time again, whereas Republicans are going to go hard in the wrong direction, and they're better at it, if that makes sense. They're more effective at being bad, whereas the Democrats aren't great at being good. So that's the issue we're in. Do I use OBS? Yes, I do. And it's all maxed out everywhere. Y'all let me know if it's like too quiet and we don't even want to watch it.
Makeup of NATO, how it functioned, and come up with a different strategy for NATO and how we work together. And in addition to that, we also talked about the G7 taking on additional responsibilities. Before the war started, I told Putin that if he invaded Ukraine, NATO would not only get stronger, but would get more united. And we would see democracies in the world stand up and oppose his aggression and defend the rules-based order. And that's exactly what we're seeing today. This summit was about strengthening our alliance, meeting the challenges of our world as it is today, and the threats we're going to face in the future. The last time NATO drafted a new mission statement was 12 years ago. At that time, it characterized Russia as a partner, and it didn't even mention China. The world has changed a great deal since then, and NATO is changing as well. At this summit, we rallied our alliances to meet both the direct threats that Russia poses to Europe and the systemic challenges that China poses to a rules-based world order. And we've invited 2 new members to join NATO. It was a historic act, Finland and Sweden, 2 countries with a long tradition of neutrality and choosing to join NATO. Some of the American press will remember when I got a phone call from the leader of Finland saying, could he come and see me? And he came the next day and said, will you support my country joining NATO? We got on the telephone. He suggested we call the leader of Switzerland. Switzerland, my goodness, I'm getting really anxious here about expanding NATO. Sweden. And what happened was, we got on the phone and she asked if she could come the next day to want to talk.
Biden, you aren't great at off the cuff these days, buddy. I'm sorry, you're not. So just put everything you're going to say in your speech and read it. This is pitiful.
About joining NATO. Allies across the board are stepping up, increasing defense spending. A majority of them are on track for the first time to exceed our 2% of GDP commitment that they make. They agree to spend
I kind of want to get to the press conference part.
2% in security assistance. Partnership between 2 American, Finland and Sweden, will be stronger than our inflation rates are lower than other nations in the world.
America is back was your
There you go.
Of the 21st century.
I like the Q&A better.
To increase the NATO border, I'm told, is
and its new polling
quarter of the 21st
There you go.
century. And we're on the verge of making significant progress.
Luke is probably raised by his 2 moms. You can't hear this, guys? Oh, good. I can see if there's a better feed. I don't have 2 moms. I have lots of like people who are like my mom, you know? But no, I have a father and a mother. Benjamin Crowley, just look at the House pass. What the House pass? Okay, this looks different. Let's see.
NATOization of Finland.
Yes, better.
Think about this. That's what he thought.
Much better.
when you put all of
We're on the verge of making significant progress. Now I'd be happy to take your questions. And the first question, I'm told, is Darlene Superville from the Associated Press.
Thank you, Mr. President. 2 questions, please.
Of course.
America is back was your motto at the first NATO summit last year, and you've come to this summit here and the one in Germany after the U.S. Supreme Court overturned constitutional protections for abortion, after the
This is what I really wanted to hear him address.
shootings in Buffalo and Texas at a time of record inflation, and as new polling this week shows that 85% of the U.S. public thinks the
You people have never left the state you're born in? You're talking to someone else, I think?
country is going in the wrong direction. How do you explain this to those people who feel the country is going in the wrong direction, including some of the leaders you've been meeting with this week, who think that when you put all of this together, it amounts to an America that is going backward?
They do not think that. You haven't found one person, one world leader
Yes, we are going backwards. It's true.
to say America's going backwards. America's better positioned to lead the world than we ever have been. We have the strongest economy in the world. Our inflation rates are lower than other nations in the world. The one thing that has been destabilizing is the outrageous behavior of the Supreme Court of the United States in overruling not only Roe v. Wade, but essentially challenging the right to privacy. We've been a leader in the world in terms of personal rights and privacy rights. And it is a mistake, in my view, for the Supreme Court to do what it did. But I have not seen anyone come up to me do anything other than, nor have you heard them say anything other than, thank you for America's...
Why would... I don't know. That's kind of a weird question. I think you could say, do you think the leaders believe America's going backwards? But to say, have any of them said that to you? Why would a world leader walk up to Biden and be like, yo, your country's going backwards, haha?
Leadership. You've changed the dynamic of NATO and the G7.
Oh, Claudia getting
So
spicy.
I can understand why the American people are frustrated because of what the Supreme Court did. I can understand why the American people are frustrated because of inflation. But inflation is higher in almost every other country. Prices at the pump are higher in almost every other country. We're better positioned to deal with this than anyone, but we have a way to go. And the Supreme Court, we have to change that decision by codifying Roe v. Wade.
There were some comments by some of your counterparts after the U.S. Supreme Court ruling. But my second question is, G7 leaders this week pledged to support Ukraine, quote, for as long as it takes. And I'm wondering if you would explain what that means to the American people, for as long as it takes. Does it mean indefinite support from the United States for Ukraine? Or will there come a time when you have to say to President Zelensky that the United States cannot support his country any longer? Thank you.
We are going to support Ukraine as long as it takes. Look at the impact that war on...
I'm not seeing the House thing that you're talking about. I saw the marijuana legalization, but JBP said he loved the content. Like, awesome. I don't know if you saw my recent shift in content, but definitely a lot more work, but that's okay because I love it. It's lots of fun. And the first batch of clips from my new type of show, which is live, are coming, but then I'll release clips from the live show, are coming out like tonight and tomorrow. So hopefully the clip versions y'all will also enjoy as well as the live show.
Ukraine has had on Russia. They've had to renege on their national debt for the first time since the beginning, almost well over 100 years. They've lost 15 years of the gains they made in terms of their economy. They're in a situation where they're having trouble because of my imposition of dealing with what can be exported to Russia in terms of technology. They can't even, they're going to have trouble maintaining oil production because they don't have the technology to do it. They need American technology. And they're also in a similar situation in terms of their weapon systems and some of their military systems. So they're paying a very, very heavy price for this. And just today, Snake Island is now taken over by the Ukrainians. So we are going to stick with Ukraine, and all of the alliance are going to stick with Ukraine as long as it takes to, in fact, make sure that they are not defeated by Ukraine. In Ukraine by Russia. And by the way, think of this. Ukraine has already dealt a severe blow to Russia. Russia, in fact, has already lost its international standing. Russia's in a position where the whole world's looking and saying, wait a minute, all this effort, you tried to take the whole country, you tried to take Kyiv.
JBP sent in a super chat. Thank you so much. God, every time it just like shocks me because I know as someone who's watched other people's content, like it's a big request to have people do that, and it like feels amazing for many reasons, obviously the financial, but also just it represents your appreciation, I guess, for the content, which makes me feel like it's all worth it and super happy about that. But anyways, he said the shift from prepared to streaming is awesome. A lot of people like streams, more content and more interaction with people. Yeah, I totally agree. And I have more fun with it. Like, I enjoy live streaming a lot more. And so, you know, you get way more content and I get to do something that I enjoy more often. The only thing that's more difficult about it is like prepping for the first part of the show. The React content I don't have to prep for, but the news portion of the show like takes more time to prepare for, but which is totally fine. It's great. So yeah. Okay, just whoops. RED5 Red 5 Golf. Just can you chill out, please? Can everyone just chill out? Big argument going on. Yeah, if you don't appreciate what I'm doing, you can just leave. You don't have to watch. That's why I never understand when people say like, I hate your videos. I'm like, then why are you watching them? You don't have to watch them. I don't get it.
You lost. You've tried to take the Donbass and all of it. You haven't done that yet. The generic point is that we're supplying them with the capacity and the overwhelming courage they've demonstrated that, in fact, they can continue to resist the Russian aggression. And so I don't know how it's going to end, but it will not end with a Russian defeat of Ukraine in Ukraine. I'm supposed to go down the list here. Jim Tankersley, New York Times.
Mr. President, thank you. This week, you and the G7 allies introduced a plan for an oil price cap for Russian exports, which is not yet filled out, and obviously is a response to the high price of gasoline in the United States and around the world. Are you confident that that cap would bring down prices for American drivers? And how long is it fair to expect American drivers to continue to pay a premium because of this war?
Let me hear the second part of the question.
James Ritchie, thank you for being here. As a Marine Corps veteran, I'm well aware of the reason Trump lost the active duty military vote. Right, yeah. Which I'm glad that he did. But I would be interested to hear your perspective. That's awesome.
The question was, would it bring down the price?
Will it bring down prices? And the war has pushed prices up. They could go as high as $200 a barrel, some analysts.
Hey, Red 5 Golf, you want to come talk with me on stream? You can add me on Discord. You seem like a spicy guy or girl. I can't really tell. If you want to, I'll send you my username. I still haven't set up a server. I need to do that. Ugh.
Think. How long is it fair to expect American drivers and drivers around the world to pay that premium for this war?
As long as it takes, so Russia cannot, in fact, defeat Ukraine and move beyond Ukraine. This is a critical position for the world. Here we are. Why do we have NATO? I told Putin that, in fact, if he were to move, we would move to strengthen NATO. We would move to strengthen NATO across the board. Look, let me explain the price. I suggested a while ago that what we should consider doing is
Red 5 Golf, the people want you. Here, I'll send you my username. That's it's Luke Beasley and then that little thingamajig. Just add me on Discord. Wait, my Discord's been freaking out though on this computer. Let me see if I can open it up. I can always do the browser version. Lol. Well, I'm waiting for you to add me. Unless you don't have Discord, then we can do something else. Skype or something.
is putting a cap on the amount of money that we would pay for, the world would pay for Russian oil. And that we would not provide, the West provides insurance, would not insure Russian ships carrying oil. We would not provide insurance for them, so they would have great difficulty getting customers. The point is that we've said to them, here's the deal. We're going to allow you to have a profit on what you make, but not the exorbitant prices that you're charging for the oil now. We've delegated a commission, a group.
Here, I'm logging into Discord.
Our national security people to sit down and work out that mechanism. We think it can be done. We think it can be done, and it would drive down the price of oil, and it would drive down the price of gasoline as well. In addition, at home.
All right, Red 5 Golf, add me up. Let's go. oh, he's so scared, guys. That's so cute. He said, I'm not calling a commie teenager to debate him. Do you know what a communist is? Because it has a meaning, and I do not apply to that meaning. Or that meaning doesn't apply to me, I should say. Guys, I can't tell you, everyone is so brave in the comments when they're against me until I ask them to come on. They're like, no, I can't. I'm too scared. It cracks me up. Man, you're a big tough guy behind the keyboard, but in real life, just a little, what was the word you used? Soy boy?
I have also called for changes. I've released 1 million barrels of oil per day from our oil reserve, and in addition to getting other nations to move forward, a total of 240 million barrels of oil to release from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, number one. Number two, I've asked Congress, would they in fact go and end the...
Wait, I'm confused. Red 5 Golf said, lol. Aw, he's so scared, guys. Who? You? Are you describing her? I'm confused. Because I'm a open... what would I say? Open platform here? You can hop on anytime you want. So sad. Why does this happen all the time? The funny thing is, people who are like usually cool in my comments and chill, if they disagree with me, they're really comfortable to hop on stream and talk with me. But then why would I call a random YouTube commie? I don't know, Red 5 Golf. Why would you comment on a random YouTube commie's live stream and then be too afraid to defend your opinions over the phone? Who is Kai? I just saw Kai added me. I doubt that's Red 5 Golf, but anyways, Red 5 Golf has waved the white flag already before we could even talk. So sad.
Temporarily end the tax on gasoline at the pump. And thirdly, to ask the states to do the same thing. If we do these things, it's estimated we could bring down tomorrow, if Congress agreed and the states agreed, we could bring down the price of oil about $1 a gallon at the pump, in that range. And so we could have immediate relief in terms of the reduction of the elimination of temporary elimination of the gas tax. And so I think there's a lot of things we can do and we will do, but the bottom line is ultimately...
Yeah, I do love, let's see, ready? Communism definition. Because I think they have a hard time understanding this. A political theory derived from Karl Marx advocating class war and leading to a society in which all property is publicly owned. Here, wait, let me highlight that. All property is publicly owned, and each person works and is paid according to their abilities. interest. I can't see. And needs. Okay. All property is publicly owned. Again, I know this is really hard to understand. 5 golf, whatever the heck. Red 5 golf. But let's do this math with us, okay? Communism relates to all property being publicly owned. That means the government owns all property. Do I want the government to own all property? No, I don't. I love private ownership, and then I think some things should be publicly owned when it can dramatically serve the interests better of the people. For example, the insurance industry doesn't need to be privately owned because that only gets in the way of us and good health care. How that makes me a communist, I don't know, because clearly you don't understand how to read definitions, but whatever. Now do fascism? That's a great point, actually, JT, because I feel like even, I will say, a lot of people on the left don't know what fascism actually means. An authoritarian and nationalistic right-wing system of government and social organization. Like, that doesn't really mean anything. The authoritarian part is really crucial to fascism. A lot of times it'll be like really definitely nationalistic, oftentimes like oppression of one. It's so hard to fascist, good job. No, we're defining it so people understand it more. Oh, you're such a little wussy pants. So afraid. Fascism is a form of far-right authoritarian ultranationalism characterized by dictatorial power, forcible suppression of opposition, and strong regimination of society and the economy that rose to prominence in early 20th century Europe. Yeah, it's a really broad term, honestly. Better educate on the difference between socialism and democratic socialist. A political and economic theory of social organization which advocates that the means of production, distribution, and exchange should be owned or regulated by community as a whole. Yeah, that's kind of the general. There's different brands of socialism, but generally it's like the average person gets to own more of their own, production, which, again, I'm not a socialist, but then social democracy. This is a good little school lesson. A socialist system of government achieved by democratic means. Oh, wait, that's not. What the heck? That's just being a democratic socialist. It's funny, we don't use it in this way in the left-wing space. In the left-wing space, it's socialism over here. Oh, I could open up the paint thing. Ready? Streamers always do this, and it's so stupid to me, but I'm going to do it now. Okay. So you have... Whoa. This is impossible. This is so difficult. What the heck? Oh, wait, I need to check the comments. Y'all could be spazzing out. 1 second. Luke is getting flustered? Am I getting flustered right now? Aiden. I don't know, bro. So you have socialism. No! It holds it down. That's so annoying. Hold up. Socialism. Okay. Then you have capitalism. And then you have social democracy. That's how I understood it. But I'm gonna stop using that term because the official definition is not correct, or is not. I'm not correct in compared to the official definition. So like way over here would be libertarianism. So most Americans are like here, where they don't want to be a libertarian. We'll put libertarian. But they want to stay like somewhere in between. They want a somewhat regulated form of capitalism. Then socialism wants like the kind of abolition of capitalism, some of them. And then communists want like complete and total elimination of the private ownership of property. Look at that. That makes no sense to anybody, does it? Cool. Wow. I was going to draw a smiley face. It's impossible to do this. Anyways, you get the point. But looks like I used that incorrectly, because social democrat, I always understood this as democratic socialist. Like Bernie's a democratic socialist, so Bernie's to the left of me. But anywho. But yeah, it's using socialistic principles like nationalizing certain industries. So I understand that there's a little bit of socialism in there. Let's see. Wiki social democracy is a government system that has similar values to socialism, but within a capitalist framework. There we go. That's a better way to put it. Thank you. The ideology named from the democracy where people have a say in government action supports a competitive economy. Yes. We want free markets, just some of them need to be heavily regulated, while also helping people whose jobs don't pay a lot. Amen. This is not true. Guys, there's so much fake stuff. Wikipedia jank. The red rose I thought was for communists. What the heck? Red 5 Golf, stop being a little scared person. I don't use certain words on this thing. And please come have a conversation with me. I'm so fascinated to hear your thoughts on some stuff. I'm kind when you talk with me, but if you're like a bleep in my chat and then you won't talk to me, I get upset. But like if you actually hop on, I'm a nice person, I promise.
The reason why gas prices are up is because of Russia.
Okay, Red 5 Golf. Constitutional Republic, yes, and we're a representative democracy. We're a representative democracy, constitutional republic. If you don't understand that, you need to go back to school.
Russia, Russia, Russia. The reason why the food crisis exists is because of Russia. Russia not allowing grain to get out of Ukraine. And so that's the way in which I think we should move, and I think it would have a positive impact on the price at the pump as well. Jordan Fabian, Bloomberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President. I also have two questions for you.
Of course.
Thanks. The first one is on Turkey. What assurances, if any, did you make to President Erdogan about his request for new F-16 jets for his military?
What I said was I said back in December, as you recall. We should sell them the F-16 jets and modernize those jets as well. It's not in our interest not to do that, and I indicated to them that I've not changed my position at all since December. And there was no quid pro quo with that. It was just that we should sell, but I need congressional approval to be able to do that, and I think we can get that.
And my second question is on your trip to Saudi Arabia, which is coming up next month. As we just discussed, Americans are paying almost $5 a gallon nationally on average for gas. So do you expect to ask the Crown Prince or the King to increase oil production? And if so, how will you balance that with your desire to hold them accountable for their human rights abuses?
Well, first of all, that's not the purpose of the trip. The purpose of the trip, first of all, I'm starting off on that trip in Israel. And the Israelis believe it's really important that I make the trip. In addition to that, what we're trying to do is the G7, it's the Gulf states plus 3. And so I'm sure that is in Saudi Arabia, but it's not about Saudi Arabia. It's in Saudi Arabia. And so there's no commitment that is being made, or I'm not even sure. I guess I will see the king and the crown prince, but that's not the meeting I'm going to. They'll be part of a much larger meeting. And what we're talking about in dealing with that trip is that before I go, I'm, as I said, going to Israel to meet with the Israeli leaders to affirm the unbreakable bond Israel and the United States have. And part of the purpose is the trip to the Middle East is to deepen Israel's integration into the region, which I think we're going to be able to do, and which is good for peace and good for Israeli security. And that's why Israel leaders...
Obviously, once I get big enough, I'll have to start, like, moderating and banning people. Right now, though, y'all, I don't really like to ban people, so... If you don't really want to engage with them, just don't message, but, like... I feel weird banning, because my whole thing is that, like, I want to hear other people's views, so... But you don't have to engage, obviously.
Leaders have come out so strongly for my going to Saudi, but the overall piece here is we're also going to try to reduce the deaths and the war that's occurring. I mean, there's a whole range of things that go well beyond anything having to do with Saudi in particular.
But if you were to see the Crown Prince or the King, would you ask them to increase oil production?
No, I'm not going to ask. I'm going to ask, all the Gulf states are meeting. I've indicated to them that I thought they should be increasing oil production generically, not to the Saudis particularly. And I think I hope we see them in their own interest concluding that makes sense to do. And, they have real concerns about what's going on in Iran and other places in terms of their security as well, all of them. Tarina, the Wall Street Journal.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to keep the trend and also ask 2 questions, if that's okay. One on the summit and one domestic question. On the summit, you just said that there would be another round of security assistance for Ukraine. After hearing President Zelensky's assessment that the war needs to end before the winter, are you changing your calculation in terms of the pace of the assistance and what kind of assistance you're sending to Ukraine?
No, the war could end tomorrow, by the way, if Russia stops its irrational behavior. So,
True.
When the war will end, I hope it ends sooner than later. But for it to end, they have to be in a position where the Ukrainians have all that they can reasonably expect, we can reasonably expect to get to them in order to provide for their physical security and their defenses. And so one does not relate to the other. We're going to be providing another, well, I guess I'll announce it shortly, but another $800 million in aid for additional weaponry, including, weapons, including air defense system, as well as offensive weapons. I have a whole list I'd be happy to give to you, but that's the next tranche that's going to occur.
And on the domestic question, sir, what further specific executive actions are you considering in response to the Roe ruling, and would you declare a public health...
Amazing. A super chat from Salim. Thank you so much. He said, why do we expect any politician supporting the Israeli regime to be really against Russia and NK? Isn't that hypocrisy? What do you mean? I'm confused. Oh, North Korea. Against Russia, North Korea. I don't think I completely grasp the essence of your question. But I think you could definitely, we see a lot of people who are supportive of, you know, Israel and stuff like that, and also against Russia. I think you can do that. We can tip Luke that way now? Yes, Doug, we can. Hooray. And I get absolutely, I combust with joy and appreciation every time.
Health emergency, as several Democrats are calling on you to do.
I'll be happy to go in detail with you on that.
And to JT's point, I don't like it, but I'm pretty sure Russia's winning. Well, the point is that they're doing way worse than expected for how dominant their military is. And that's kind of the core part of what people are, you know, highlighting in this conflict, is that like Ukraine's standing much stronger than expected based on the comparative strength of either military. You're late to the party, Doug. Yeah. And I don't know if you heard, Doug, but we're changing up the format. So now I'm going to be live all the time. You'll get too much of me every weekday starting at 5 p.m. Eastern, which means I'll have a gazillion clips going up every single day now. Lots of content. Hooray.
I'm having a meeting with a group of governors when I get home on Friday, and I'll have announcements to make then. But the first and foremost thing we should do is make it clear how outrageous this decision was and how much it impacts not just on a woman's right to choose, which is a critical piece, but on privacy generally. And so I'm going to be talking to the governors as to what actions they think I should be taking as well. And but the most important thing to be clear about is we have to change. I believe we have to codify Roe v. Wade in the law, and the way to do that is to make sure the Congress votes to do that. And if the filibuster gets in the way, it's like voting rights. It should be, we provide an exception for this, require an exception to the filibuster for this action to deal with the Supreme Court decision. Hang on, I got one more here. Kelly O'Donnell, NBC.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, you just made some news saying you would support changing the filibuster rules to codify abortion rights broadly across the country.
Got it, Doug.
Right to privacy, not just abortion rights, but yes, abortion rights.
Can you describe for us, sir, many Americans are grappling with this. What is your sense today about the integrity and the impartiality of the Supreme Court? Should Americans have confidence in the court as an institution? And your views on abortion have evolved in your public life. Are you the best messenger to carry this forward when Democrats, many of them, many progressives, want you to do more?
Yeah, I am. I'm the President of the United States of America. That makes me the best messenger. And I really think that...
Salim, thank you so much for another super chat. You are absolutely showing the love today. He said, I mean, what Russia's doing in Ukraine is no different to what Israel's doing in Palestine. Supporting one and condemning the other is hypocrisy to me. Yeah, I've heard people kind of bringing that point up of like, obviously there's huge characteristical differences in like what each situation is. But I agree we should be standing against the oppression and, you know, killing of people in all settings across the world and not prioritize. Another example of that is like Yemen, you know. People don't want to talk about what's going on there as much as whenever it's a European country or a lot of what we did in Iraq and Afghanistan. So I think there's some hypocrisy there in which issues people care about, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't care about the ones that a lot of people care about, if that makes sense. And like, I don't know, that's a longer conversation. I should do a Israel-Palestine video at some point, because there's just so much. Certain conflicts are not like complicated and seem pretty clear who's in the wrong. Super clear. But the longer history of it is one that I don't think I have the perfect grasp on, or other people definitely don't have the perfect grasp on. So I want to at some point do a deep dive where I kind of go through all of that, because there's a long history for sure. Larry, thank you so much. God, amazing. You are absolutely fantastic. He said, speaking of debating, I can't tell you how interesting it is to watch the old Trump debate with Hillary and seeing him act like a normal person as opposed to babbling mess he is now. Totally. Thank you again for that super chat. Doug, stop trying to get in the way of me bringing home a little bit of bacon. Jeez.
Serious problem that the court has thrust upon the United States, not just in terms of the right to choose, but in terms of the right to who you can marry, a whole range of issues relating to privacy. And I have written way back a number of law review articles about the Ninth Amendment and the 14th Amendment and why.
So just so you know, the question he's answering right now is because he's had different views on abortion throughout his career, the journalist asked, are you the best messenger for this? And his initial response was, well, I'm the president. So yeah, I have, a lot of responsibility to speak to this. But then also now he's kind of justifying what his history is and all that type of stuff.
Privacy is considered as part of a constitutional guarantee. And they've just wiped it all out. And so I'm the only president they got, and I feel extremely strongly.
I know, Larry. Whenever I can't handle stuff, I just turn on old debates like that.
That I'm going to do everything in my power, which I legally can do in terms of executive orders, as well as push the Congress and the public. The bottom line here is, if you care, if the polling data is correct, and you think this decision by the court was an outrage or a significant mistake, vote. Show up and vote. Vote in the off year and vote. That's how we'll change it. All right, guys. No, there's no such thing as a quick one. I'm out of here. Thank you all very much.
He didn't take anything from the Doocy dude. Huh. Interesting. Very, very interesting. Oh my goodness. A massive super chat from Cliffhangers. Thank you so much. They said, so glad you can get super chats now. This super chat is long overdue. I followed you for a while now, but wanted to say thank you for filling in for David. Your calm voice keeps me following. Easy listening. Well, I'm so glad. That means the world. Yeah, I love it. I absolutely love when he asked me to fill in, and then I love that y'all come over and follow me here. And obviously I love doing this. Speaking of which, as Larry said, I could definitely use it these days. I'm about to stop working the job that I have. So, lots of uncertainty in the life of, oh my gosh, uncertainty in the life ahead. So definitely, if you enjoy what I do, support it, absolutely. And we're gonna build it. You know, a lot of the people who were watching my live streams just a couple months ago, we were at like 2,000 or 3,000 subscribers, and they've gotten to watch it like quadruple. And so everyone who's watching now, hopefully will get to watch that happen again. I'm working to get kind of on some other platforms similar to how I went on Pac-Man's, and hopefully some other progressive shows as well. And so we'll just keep that growth going, but you guys are what allows me to make it happen. And since I'm expanding the form of my show, where it's a lot more show prep, and a lot more hours spent each day, it definitely helps to have that like funding for it, you know? So to anyone who's not already a patron, definitely become that. Super chats are amazing, and then being a patron's amazing as well. I do a bonus show once a week, extra content for any patrons. Doug gave $1. Thank you so much, Sir Doug. And Larry gave another $5. Gosh, you're the man. He said, just for Doug, here's another one. Haha. Doug, keep making people mad so that they'll donate. $20 more will become Shirtless Friday night. Oh, Shirtless Friday night and lights. Heck yeah. Yeah, I'll make it to where if I hit a certain mark every live stream, that's when like an article of clothing comes off. No, I'm kidding. Thank you, Salim. That is awesome. I really want to talk to someone today. Is anyone in a debatey mood? Besides Doug. Just kidding. I was really hoping to speak to that troll dude, but whatever. I don't want to react to stuff. I want to talk to somebody. Ugh. Nude stream. You guys are, you little pervs in the chat. Salim, another super chat. God, you're amazing, Salim. You should definitely team up with TYT. Yeah, I would love to appear on theirs. They're harder to get in contact than David was in contact with, but I would love to. Oh, JT. I've been wanting to talk with JT for a while. Yeah, JT, let's do it. Have you already added me on Discord? Here, I'll put it in the chat again. Doug gave another $1. That's awesome. Thank you, Doug. Oh, Solemn, we probably don't have as much to debate about. But JT looks like he's interested. So there's my little Discord username. You can add me up. And I'm going to make a server eventually so that I don't just have to have a gazillion people who are my friends on Discord. Instead, I can just have them hop on the server. But I'm lazy, so. I'm simultaneously not. Like, today was insane because I had my job and then I prepped for the show, which took like a couple hours, I don't know, an hour and a half, and then worked out. But then little things I'll like never get done. Salim said he'll debate me with a super chat. Amazing. Who do you think wins the Senate? I think the Democrats have a chance now, but it's a coin toss in my mind. All right, Salim, I put my Discord thing in there, so you can hop on too. What on? I don't know. Oh. Doug, why are you doing it in $1 increments? That's so funny. But I'll take it. That's amazing. Thank you. It's just funny. Oh, good. You did the bell, Sir Lone Star. Awesome. So we're just waiting on someone to hop on. It's taken them long enough. JT, come on, let's go. Let's go, let's go, let's go. And then we'll get Salim up in here. Unless we don't have anything to debate about. I'm not in the mood for just a chill convo. I want it to be more contemptuous. Is that the proper usage of that word? Not contempt. Yeah, contemptuous. Wait, contemptuous. Contemptuous, showing contempt. Yep. Because I'm getting the reaction that $10 Larry didn't. Oh, Salim gets first dibs? Okay, well. Oh, he hasn't added me yet, so you're in the queue. You win. Let me turn down. The volume's always way too loud on you people. Hey. Unmute. Actually, yeah, unmute, but then I have a question for you. Too much testosterone? Nah. Thank you, Doug, for another super chat. This is really fun. I never know when it's gonna pop up, and then boom, there it is. I cannot hear you if you're talking right now, but you're gonna have to unmute, Sir JT. Hello. Just for y'all's context, we're on a call right now, but I'm not hearing him. Okay, disconnect. That doesn't do anything. I love all the Discord noises. Unlike Pac-Man, he hates them. That's what she said? About what? Oh, hold up. Let me go to the restroom real quick, and by the time I get back, hopefully JT has figured out his stuff. One sec. I'll be right back. Nobody leave. Oh no. Where did he go? What happening? You're conditioning me, Doug? Oh, goodness. We need to buy him a better chair. True that. Yeah, we do call the washroom the restroom. Here, Salim, did you add me? Because you're good to go if you want to come on. Oh, you did. Sorry. Here we go. Wait. Oh, it's because your name was that. There we go. I'm calling you now. What's the hair situation? Ugh. Hey. Hello? Why is no one's audio showing up? What the heck? Are you talking right now? Hello? You guys are killing me. I don't get why it would be called a washroom, because you're not washing. You're, well, I guess sometimes you are, but you're in the restroom. Okay, I just saw you mute and unmute, but still not hearing anything. My volume is up. Hello?
Hello?
There we go, finally.
Oh, it's working, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, your voice sounds so nice.
Oh, thank you.
Where are you from?
I'm from Morocco, but I'm living in America right now. Been here for a year. And yeah, you guys have a crazy, crazy country.
True that. Okay, so you're in the US right now?
Yes, sir.
Very cool. And where would you say you stand politically?
I'd like to say I'm a conservative, progressive person, if it makes sense.
A conservative progressive?
Yes,
that doesn't.
sir.
So what makes you feel conservative?
I'm conservative in the respect that I'm quite religious. I come from a religious background. I'm quite the traditional guy in a way. So
Okay.
that's the conservative part. But then I'm very like open-minded. I do not agree with a lot of people on how they see things. For example, like homosexuality and other stuff. For example, like what's happening nowadays in the US with abortion, like banning abortion and all that stuff. Even though I'm personally against abortion, but not in the manic way that they're represented in the media.
Are you against abortion as a federal policy, or are you against, like, I've heard some people say, I'm not, quote, for abortion in my personal life, so like they would never get one, or they would never encourage someone to get one, but not on a policy level? Or are you like against the government protecting people's ability to get an abortion at certain points?
Now, that is a tricky one, because I don't know if you heard this term, but what works for a culture may not work for another. So, for example, for back home, I would be totally against abortion, apart from, of course, something like a case that threatens the mother or the child, or like rape or something like that, something very extreme that calls for an abortion. But as I live in America, and I'm not American just yet, I do not think an abortion ban is right for the American people, especially that a lot of people find it to be a natural right of their own. So you can't just strip people out of that right just because you don't agree with it.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I agree with that. And you think, what would be the ideal policy federally if, like, you were the king of America and you were setting what the parameters would be around abortion? Is it like, do you think of it in trimesters, or would you ban it, or what?
I would hold a referendum for sure. But at the same time, I feel like the states where there's a high no vote, for example, they don't want to ban abortion. They get to have some sort of I don't know, like some sort of power to legalize it to some extent. I don't know. Something like I can't really tell, because it would be so arrogant of me to impose my culture and my belief over the American people and the American audience. They'd be like, of course, this person is not from here, so he doesn't exactly understand the characteristics and the cultural aspects of it. But if I were to be the president of America, for example, I would definitely tighten the grip in a way, and maybe open like a debate, a national debate. I think that would be even better, to bring people closer.
Yeah, the interesting thing is abortion is a fascinating conversation because I think most people are in some state of confusion on it based on the conversations I've had with people, whereas a lot of issues people know what they believe. With abortion, if I pose the pro-life argument or the pro-choice argument to them, it like can easily sway people and they're like, yeah, well, and that's why there's a lot of like push and pull on this issue where it just doesn't seem to get settled. What's up?
I'm definitely pro-life, like definitely.
But see, yeah, the interesting thing is people who say that to me a lot of times can get on board with the idea of like increasing access to Plan B and stuff, which if you believe, like, do you believe that life starts at conception?
A form of life, yes, but not like life as we know it. In my belief, it starts whenever the fetus or the embryo is 40 days old within the womb. That's when life like starts for me.
And what brought you to that conclusion?
My own beliefs, like my religion.
I guess, is there like a attribute that develops, like a heart or something?
Yeah, I mean, depends again on their beliefs. For us, like a person starts to be a person when they're like 40-day old within the womb. That's when, you get to have a soul, you get to have a bunch of things,
that doesn't make sense to me, the soul thing, but
I would like to ask you a question though.
Yeah, go for it.
It has to do with abortion. So in my defense, to me, I would argue that if you know that you're not going to be able to support a child or care for a kid, then you would have to protect yourself against that in the first place. If you go carelessly and end up being pregnant, then it is your responsibility to be held accountable for what you've done. You know what I mean?
So this is why people bring up rape, for example, is to prove the point of like, number one, that's not all of all abortions aren't because people were being irresponsible, but the other reason is it allows people to understand life within the context of kind of like a pregnancy, and most people can tap into their understanding that clearly we don't give that being in the mother's womb its own individual rights in certain instances. Therefore, if we want to have a universal practice, we can't make the decision up to the state like that early, because the example that people give is rape. So like we can in a second, I'm happy to talk about people who are like irresponsible with contraception and stuff, but first, is it your belief like if someone does get raped that they have to then use their biological being to like produce another being because someone else forced it upon them?
No. If you get raped, or if there's a case of something that might endanger the kid or the mother, or maybe incest as well, that's when you get an abortion. Other than that, it's very, very restricted, because
but then
it's like
what's the difference?
There's no reason for it.
What's the difference between the value of the life if it came from one situation or another? Like if you believe it's a life, what's the difference of how it got conceived?
Because there's a lot to it than just the way it was conceived. There's, for example, like mainly I'm concerned with the physical challenges that come with that pregnancy. Right,
but I'm saying, if for me what is difficult to understand with with pro-life people is specifically if you recognize that someone shouldn't have to use their body to create another being if the thing that caused that, like the conception, was involuntary, then in that acceptance, you're also admitting that there's a difference between a life in the womb and out of the womb, and the life within the womb doesn't yet have its full own rights. Because if I found out that a kid, like a person that I knew in real life outside of the womb, was conceived through rape, I don't think the law should be that you could go kill anyone who was conceived through rape out and about in the world, right? And so it's not directly applicable, but conservatives like to pretend that an unborn child is the same in its like life value as a born child. But the rape example shows you that most people don't actually believe that.
I don't really agree because, again, when I said rape, there's a lot to it. For example, in our countries, there's certain laws, for example, where should a girl be raped by someone, they get to marry this person, you know? So maybe my understanding and my take on things also have to do with my own culture. Like I said, I wouldn't want someone who has been raped by someone else to be forced to get married to them. Maybe
Agreed.
Having a kid with like coming out of rape, for example, that would be damaging for the mother. Not only because when I say like physical, but I also mean emotional.
No, I get that. I'm really trying to dig into like, if you, okay, so take someone who just like never has sex with condoms and doesn't use birth control and has a blast and is living life, and then they get pregnant. What people say is the reason why they don't have the power to decide in those earlier like phases of the pregnancy about if they want to continue to carry that being is because the being has its own rights and it's its own life. That's what like the argument is. So then how does that change for if it was through a rape? Do you know what I mean? Like if it's its own being with, if its own life with its own individual rights, then it doesn't matter how it got conceived or how damaging it would be to the mother. It's still its own thing that has to be protected, and thus the mother can't make the decision. But that's why obviously I'm pro-choice, because that doesn't make sense to me.
No, but we already established what the loophole for abortion is. Like, you could have abortion if that endangers the mother or the kid in any shape or form. So if it endangers the mother in a way that it makes her vulnerable in an emotional state, for example, that would like cause a lot of damage in the sense of she's not going to be able to take care of the kid because she's going to be so messed up. She's not going to be able to provide the kid with like what she needs, what she or he needs, like on an emotional level.
That's the reason that most women cite for getting abortions, even if it wasn't through rape, is usually because they're not prepared to carry it for 9 months and then birth it and then take care of the child.
That's the thing. Why put yourself in that position in the first place? You can't just be like, okay, I want to do whatever I want, but then when it comes to the consequences that you must be facing.
So you're just saying that it's a life worthy of its own protection if we can prove that it was conceived through irresponsible means, but if it was conceived through not responsible, but if it was conceived in a way that is not a way that can be blamed on the mother, then it's no longer a life with its own rights. Like, how does that have to do with the life piece of it? That just has to do with if you think it's more justified or not if it's a life with individual rights.
I think I'm missing your point.
So let's say this is not as black and white as it is, but let's say for the sake of understanding that I say life starts, like you said, 40 days. Ready? Boom. That's the dot.
Right.
Okay. If someone gets raped and then gets an abortion after 40 days, you're saying that's justified because of all the reasons you gave. But if someone is pregnant for some other reason that's not gonna damage in your mind the mother, then it would be not justified after 40 days. That has to do with like your personal feelings about the justification, but that has nothing to do with where that line is. So you still believe in both cases that a life is being killed, like murdered.
Yes.
So we're just saying sometimes we can murder, as the pro-lifers would say, babies, but sometimes we shouldn't murder babies.
It depends on the outcome, really, because I think you're using big words like they are. It's not, like you said, it's not that much of a black and white situation, you know?
So then I'll ask, who decides if it's justified or not? Do we need like a board in every town that gets to hear out the case of a woman about if she gets to have an abortion or not? Like, tell us how traumatic this all was for you, and tell us how much damage is going to be done if you have to carry this to term.
I think it needs, like I said in the beginning, it needs some sort of open discussion. You would have the parents on board. You would have, like you said, some sort of committee on board that is specializing in that kind of stuff. You would have like school to like teach kids how to actually be responsible on that. It's not as easy as, okay, get a bunch of specialists or get a bunch of people that get to decide what's good and what's not for a woman's
yeah. So quickly, let me intervene to say thank you so much to Cliffhangers for the thing. He said it's all about bodily autonomy, Luke. Thank you. And then Larry said it's all about whether or not they're babies at that stage. So I guess to sum up my point that I was making earlier, if you weren't, not you, if the audience wasn't exactly following the analogy, which it looks like they are, but just to really make a concise statement on this, your ability to understand that life is not valuable enough to be carried to term if it was in the case of rape reveals to me that you don't actually believe at the point that you would lay out on other cases that is an actual life worthy of individual rights. That's what that reveals to me. It's like, but it sounds like based on what you've said, there is some confusion there on like exactly what you feel, because you feel like the community should be involved in people's opinions. But to me, on a philosophical level, I don't care about like what the community or the country believes. I care about what is like not inherently, but like actually truthful and correct. And so do I genuinely believe societally the societal bodies, which is like a government, should have to prevent women anytime after conception from making that decision? I think that's wrong and impossible. And then to address what you're saying about like the making bad decisions thing, it all comes back, and that's why I keep coming back to and I know people hate when like the rape thing's brought up because it's so provocative, and I don't like using that in like a debate where let me use the most extreme example. But the reason I have to use it is because it reveals to anyone thinking about this issue that they don't really believe that being inside the mother's womb at that phase is something worthy of its individual rights. Because individual rights can't be like conditional in that sense. It can't be, how did you come to be? Because then wouldn't your argument follow that a baby right out of the womb who was conceived through rape could be killed?
Not always.
Sometimes.
Not always. Not always. Not out of. That's the thing. That's the thing. Not out of the womb.
Right,
Not
so
when
the-
they're conceived as
yeah.
a baby. That's the thing.
So then, to me, that
We're talking about.
Yeah. Sorry.
We're talking about early stages of pregnancy, right?
What? Yeah. Look, right now we are. Yeah. No. I was saying that if you take, and Doug, just hush if you're gonna keep making that point. Just hush. It's perfectly fine for people to discuss a massive societal issue that's in the news right now. But I'm saying that your logical train of thought follows to being like any life after being conceived through rape isn't as valuable as other lives. But I think like if a person walking around on the earth told me that they were conceived through rape, I would not think they have any less right to be alive than anyone else.
Absolutely. I agree with you.
Right. So then that should be all the way back to where you draw the line of when a being is worthy of its own individual rights. Which if you draw that at 40 days on all those other cases, then you would have to draw it in 40 days because that's when you're saying it literally becomes something within the womb that is so developed as a human that is no longer a
but here's
being under the
here's the
umbrella
thing-
of the mother.
But here's the thing that we did not quite discuss that leads me to believe what I believe. Like I said in the beginning, it has to do with culture and faith. So you're talking out of your belief as a person who was born and raised in America, right? So it's completely different for a person that's been like born and raised elsewhere. Like there's the element of religion which we take very seriously back home. The whole situation where, like I don't want to say this because it doesn't strike me as a professional debate thing to say, but the term God has a plan.
This is a very casual debate, so you can use whatever language you want.
Yeah. So there's a lot of little things that may not add up to like what you believe. By the way, I do have a question that relates to what I said, and I want to know if you agree on it. Do you agree that what works for a culture might not work for another, or do you believe that certain things should be universal no matter what the culture?
Yeah, I definitely think in a multicultural society, you have to have something above each individual one that sets the standards that everyone else has to live by. So like in even the best of societies, we don't have full freedom of religion, because what if your religion said that you want like you had to kill everyone? Like what if I created a religion that said it was to slap people in the face every day? Like there has to be something above each individual group's own beliefs, and that's where every group gets to come together in a democratic society and set those standards based on their own beliefs and then negotiating with other people's beliefs. So I agree with you. What's actually going to happen on this issue comes down to the public opinion on it and people's ability to translate public opinion into the using of political power. But on like a philosophical level, I'm always just fascinated when people have kind of, to me, inconsistent beliefs on abortion, where it's like, well, in some cases it's a life, some cases it's not. It's like, well, it is
Here's
I don't know.
another question that I have, if I may ask.
Definitely.
So, like 2020 elections have shown us a lot of people have voted for Trump, and like there's a lot of conservatives in this country. The question whether it's a minority or not is not really the problem for now, but we can agree that it's a somewhat large portion of the American people, right? So by taking the progressive way right, and making it a default for everybody in the country, wouldn't that make a sort of violation, the same violation that the other party would do should they take control and have everybody go by their standards in a way?
So I think I understand what you're saying. If I answer it like in a incorrect way, just let me know if I misheard you. But I agree that the actual on the ground reality is just going to come down to who can get political power and then use it to enforce their standards on the country. My job is to convince as many people as possible why, like, the standards and principles and values that I think the government should represent are the best ones. But then that you do have a, like, in a good, well set up country, you would have, like, we have a constitution that lays out stuff that can't be infringed on, and like the rights that you have regardless of who's in power, like these things can't be infringed on. Now, of course, even that's just a gentleman's agreement, because if all of the military and all of the government decided they didn't want to follow the Constitution, they don't have to. But that's kind of the idea, is like, yes, it's going to be dependent on who gets political power, so somewhat representative of public opinion, but in articulating what the people in power should be, or like why you should select the people that I like to be in power, I have to explain on like a broad societal basis why it would be the best world to live in.
I feel like in America, at least from what I've seen, because I've consumed a lot of American politics even before I moved to the country, even people who were elected by the American people to be in the Senate or be in the House or be president, they're very out of touch with the people. Yeah. And there's something I still can't grasp. There's been people that have been in the Senate for years and years and years and years, and I'm like, why do people keep electing these people knowing that they're not going to do anything? By the way, this is something for another debate, which is the power of voting versus not voting. I'm a huge anti-voter. I've never voted in my life. I don't think I'll ever vote in my life. And coming here has made me even more of an anti-voter, because I see that your vote doesn't do anything at all. Like, it creates no difference, because there's a system like higher than anything else, like a higher power that is going to ensure that whatever they want is dictated no matter what the people want.
So hopefully you're not like talking about a conspiratorial higher power, but if you just mean like
no
wealthy powerful interests, then definitely. So, but not really. Yeah. Here, feel free to say I gotta go at any point, because I'll just keep going. But to answer that, well, you made a first point that what were you bringing up like right before you just said what you said? There were
about the votes, or about the people who have been elected over and over.
So the quick answer to the reason why people keep getting elected, a lot of people don't pay attention to politics that much, and so they go a lot off of name recognition, and a lot of name recognition and just like awareness of a candidate comes from how much advertising money you have, and a lot of the advertising money you have comes like how good of a fundraiser you are, and a lot of fundraising comes from entities that donate to super PACs and stuff like that, so like corporations and billionaires, stuff like that. So a lot of times people who really aren't, in my opinion, serving the interest of the American people as well as they should stay in a super long time, because a lot of people don't know the ins and outs of Congress. So they don't know that the Congress people and senators like aren't really doing the best that they could, but they do know.
That's more of the reason.
When they go into
that's more the reason for not voting. Sorry.
Well, opposite. But when they go into the voting booth, like they remember that person's name and they've seen a bunch of positive ads about this person because that person raised a bunch of money. But also, I think sometimes we overstate how flawed it is. Like, a lot of people genuinely don't care that much, and they don't want radical, so like they don't actually vote for progressives because they think it's radical. And so some of it is just people genuinely aren't all the way to where we want them to be yet, and that's part of our job. So then the answer to the voting question, all the problems that you identified accurately, the only answer to them is voting. So at the end of the day, politicians do have to get voted into office. It doesn't matter how much campaign contributions, how many campaign contributions they take from wealthy interests. If they don't get a bunch of people to go in and put their name down, they're not going to win. And we have a really good, secure democratic process. So it's not like elections are getting fraudulent or bought off or something like that.
Who do I no?
And so
that's the issue.
Yeah,
that is the issue actually.
What?
That it's not. Who do I vote for if I don't trust anybody? If I know that everybody is playing the same team, even though they're trying to mock me into. In one way or another, they are.
Wait, what?
Because like I said earlier, the Democrats are barely doing anything, and Republicans are like they don't have the majority in the Senate. They don't have the majority. They don't have the presidency, and yet they're accomplishing more for their team
but they're
than
not.
Democrats are.
Like rhetorically they are. They're like attacking liberals, but I think people understate. Biden passed the American Rescue Plan. If you're someone who received support from that means something to you. The 50% of children who are pulled out of poverty because of the child tax credit, that means something. Like the roads and bridges that are going to be improved because of, again, he hasn't done enough, but he's done stuff. And I think us pretending like those things that we have seen in the positive direction, the millions of people, I think we cut uninsurance in half with Obamacare. Again, I want Medicare for all, but pretending like that doesn't make a material positive effect in people's lives is silly. And so all the people who put Barack Obama's name down in the election were a one little piece of getting all those uninsured people insured and making it to where they were much more likely to have better health outcomes and generally better lives because of it and not be burdened so much by the cost of it. So I agree the Democratic Party doesn't do enough, and if we can get more voters activated, we can vote better candidates in who don't take as much campaign contributions from certain interests and who reflect our will more. But that doesn't mean that the voting that we've currently done hasn't made a difference, and that doesn't mean the future voting isn't like one of our primary options, as well as organization, labor unions and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, our politicians have to respond to our vote. And right now we're not doing a good enough job of educating ourselves on the specifics of each politician so that we get the correct ones in there.
Thing is, what you said right now sounds very idealistic.
Wait, but answer this. Like, do you not think that Obamacare improved a bunch of people's lives who didn't have insurance and now they do?
I'm definitely not cultured enough to know about that, as I recently had moved. The only incident I have with Obamacare is whenever I wanted to get an insurance, but it was extremely expensive. So I was like, nah, I'm not going to get it. So that's my only take on Obamacare. I don't know.
Right, and to give you an example, I think it's like 20% of the U.S. population or something is on some form of welfare. And that's food stamps, that's like health, that's insurance support, that's childcare money. So each one of those programs was fought for by progressive movements of the past. And while some of our current welfare situations are flawed, I think we should move to a more universal situation in like healthcare, for example, and not based on a price bracket. But you like, it's not idealistic because I can look at the past and say, wow, all the people who voted for people who got into positions of power and enacted those positive changes, they did that. Each one of those voters did that. So us voting today in aggressively large numbers could do that again. But it's the complacency that you're expressing right now and that many express that leads us to a situation where a small percentage of our country gets to decide who I don't like this word, but like rules over all of us, and thus they're not representing us that well because not enough people are even involved in the system.
Because there's a huge trust issue before fixing anything. This trust gap has to be met. You know, to me again. Okay, you talked about educating people on politics and who to vote for. Like, how do we know that we should trust the platforms that educate us on a certain candidate? For example, someone with a conservative/Republican leanings would definitely go with the narrative of media like Fox News and Newsmax and whatnot. Someone with a progressive view on things would go with other like platforms. So how do we get to a somewhat universal decision on who's more genuine as a person to, or like who's more fitting as a person to vote into Congress or into presidency and whatnot?
Right. So oftentimes people who are somewhat complacent, they'll vote, and this is, at least they're voting, but a lot of people go and they vote and then they disconnect. And so, yeah, how are you going to know if they followed through with what you asked them to do if you're not tracking their every move? But if people were involved in our democratic process as much as I think we all should be, then the way they would know if they are trustworthy is by referencing back to all of the tracking that individual has done of their politicians' actions. And so it's like, all right, I voted them in, they didn't do what I want, vote them out. Right now, people don't really know exactly what's going on. People think that Biden just like clicked a button to create inflation and gas prices and stuff, and so they're going to vote him out likely, or like that would be one of the reasons that he would lose, whereas that's just not the case at all. And a lot of the policies that Biden has put forward would, if we had more people in Congress and the Senate, would actually ameliorate some of those problems long term. And so we're voting against our interests in that case. But if someone followed their promises by keeping up with them, but people just don't keep up with their politicians as aggressively as they should.
Yeah, I totally agree on that front. Maybe again there's the trust issue that is like, I'm like, why am I going to follow up with this person? This person got whatever they wanted. They're not really going to do what I want, even if I tell them to. So,
but they
maybe there's.
We have had to happen again.
Yeah,
Americans
but
wanted a change in the healthcare system, and we didn't get all the way what some of us wanted, but we cut uninsurance in half, just because of one little vote you cast. All you had to do was go one day and we got uninsurance cut in half.
I don't know if what's been accomplished so far is enough.
It's not enough.
I want to touch. That's the thing. It's not enough. It's not encouraging enough.
Wait. Let's say that your goal was to be able to run a marathon, 26.2 miles, and you went out for 10 days, and you weren't really training that much, and you weren't really eating right, and you worked up to only 5 miles, and you said, okay, well, I got from being able to run 1 mile to running 5 miles, so going out and running each day was good, but that's not enough, so I give up. That's your response? To me, it's like, oh, maybe I should think about training better and stretching more and eating better and, this, that, and the other. And that's the metaphor, is that a lot of people see our system not working correctly, and it's like, so let's eject from the system? What? How about we fix the system by getting more involved?
I think where I disagree with you is believing in whether or not the system could be fixed. That's the thing.
I mean, not completely and totally, but we can make material changes in people's lives that mean something.
Okay, here's something that responds to that. You said, like, we look at the past and we're like, okay, we've come a long way, but going back to abortion and what Clarence Thomas has talked about recently, we're facing a setback. So whatever you got in the last few years, whatever progressive stuff you got, you're like technically they're starting to take them back. You know, with now abortion, next is going to be like same-sex marriages. You know, like at some point, whatever you got.
What would have prevented that if Trump didn't get elected as president? And you know what caused Trump to get elected as president? More people felt it was important to go out and vote for him than vote for, well, okay, more people voted for Hillary, but more people in the correct states and all that type of stuff to translate to the Electoral College voted for him. And the way we could have gotten all those three would have been Democratic or like liberal justices if Hillary was president, but she didn't get enough votes for that. So the solution is to get more involved and vote more. And now an earlier solution would have been we got involved better in the primaries and got a better candidate who wasn't Hillary, who could have beat Trump. Again, this is all we have to get more active. And the whole like I don't think it can be fixed thing. What about times in U.S. history that our government did awesome stuff? Like we went from not having Social Security to having Social Security, not having Medicare to having Medicare, not having any of the welfare programs we have to having the welfare programs. You know, we had slavery and then we abolished slavery. Like, I feel like you're overlooking any of the moves in the correct direction we did that we could do again.
I think the fear, is
that movement.
Again, the trust and the fear that it's going to be taken away with time. Because I don't think it's getting any better. And I'm pretty much, I don't know if you agree with me, but I'm pretty much sure that the Democratic Party is not going to make it in 2022 and 2024 with the way it's going right now. So if imagine in 22 if the Republicans take over the Senate and House, and 24 when they take over the presidency, it's probably going to be worse than Trump era, you know?
Right.
And that's what I'm afraid of. Because
so then your solution is to not go vote? What? If a bunch of people like you and me don't go vote, then I can tell you 100% the Republicans are going to win.
That's the thing. If I believe that they're going to win whether I vote or not, what's the point of going to vote?
No, but elections are decided by votes. So if you go and vote, you're going to be one in a big jumble of people who went and voted and possibly caused the Republicans not to win.
But then I don't know. Like it's almost dreamy at this point to believe that they're gonna win, like given the circumstances of where the country is headed.
So lately, though, we've seen a huge shift, and now they have a lot better chances. But polling on everything shows more of the country is liberal than conservative. It's just conservatives do a better job of turning out all of their voters.
True. I totally agree. And maybe that's what progressives need to focus on.
Yes.
Because I don't think that progressives are getting their ideas through to the people.
Agreed.
Or maybe the people that are leaning towards progressives are not as hardcore believers as the people on the other side. And I think part of the problem is the politicians on the Democratic bank, you know. They're I don't know, I can't find a word to describe them, but they're very discouraging.
But I agree with you. And we have the power to decide which people become Democratic representatives. And I mean big D Democratic. Like in primaries, we can choose better progressive candidates. Right now, we just keep choosing sort of, not always, but a lot of times, sort of feckless, centrist Democrats who don't fight that hard. But that's up to us. There's just not enough of us right now who are activated enough.
Who would you say would make a good candidate, apart from Bernie Sanders?
For president?
Yeah.
Ugh. Well, that's a tough situation right now. I personally he probably needs more time to develop. But like John Ossoff's pretty cool. Raphael Warnock, both the Georgia senators are cool. And then I really like Jamie Raskin, but I don't know if he like has the vibe of a presidential candidate. It's kind of like a style thing that is important. He comes off like a college professor, but I love him. He's awesome. But we have a weak bench right now, and this is why I think people have a hard time like seeing past the 1 year that's ahead of them. So if over the last 10 years we were electing progressive candidates, we'd have a lot more who were in positions of power that are kind of like stepping stones to the presidency. But because a lot of the people who are currently in power are not awesome progressives, a lot of the great progressives aren't really like in the Senate or governors or stuff like that, so we don't have people who are in those positions that people see as kind of good experience for being president.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the people anointed in the Supreme Court stay there for life, right?
Yeah.
So with more conservatives than liberals in there, isn't that a huge setback that might make it harder to overturn the Supreme Court towards the progressive side?
A massive setback, yeah. And that setback came from people not voting enough for the correct candidates.
Yeah, but now it is what it is. Like, what do you think could be done about that very issue? Because obviously they hold an immense amount of power.
Yeah, so they could expand the court. I don't know. I would want to do a deep dive before I like set a hard opinion on that, but because then the Republicans might start doing it. I don't know. Yeah, that's the only option as far as getting immediate change on the court.
Expanding the court would work for progressives and would work also against them should a president like Trump be elected again.
Right, exactly. That's why you got to be careful with it. But the other option is like, it's just going to be a waiting game, which is horrible. But they won't knock down everything progressive. A lot of policies we can pass that just are undeniably constitutional. It would just be certain things that are more progressive but controversial that the Supreme Court would knock down. And then obviously stuff like Roe v. Wade. But I don't even, like, we could codify Roe v. Wade into law, or the principles of it, the protection of abortion rights, and they wouldn't really have a constitutional basis to knock that down. Because right now,
yeah, but then
they still might. They're so activist judges these days, but they use the justification of like, the court shouldn't have decided this. So why they would flip and now decide the other direction would be wild, but they still might do it, honestly.
But then there are more red states than blue states. So across the red states, that's going to be like a law that can't be broken. So.
But if you make a federal policy, then they have to follow it.
But until you make it, that's quite something.
Yeah,
that's
the predicament we're in.
Yeah.
Well,
I wanted.
Yeah. Go for it.
Yeah, I wanted to ask another question. Sorry about that.
No, I love it. It's awesome.
To me, it's more like I'm learning more about the American way of life and the American politics in a way that is different to how I did back in the day, because I was watching from afar. I didn't know what I know now as far as living in the country is concerned. But this is, I know I've set the record for being such a pessimistic person, but I don't know what your take on this is.
Okay.
So you saw 2020, you saw January 6th. You know what's going on right now. The country is very much divided.
Yep.
Do you think there could be any chances of a civil war breaking out within the decade that we're in right now, especially with 24, maybe 28? If a similar thing happened.
I think so. There's a difference between like what do I think in the deepest part of my heart and what do I think is helpful to the public conversation. I think any discussion of a civil war is pointless. The lines in which our country is now divided on would make it profoundly difficult for that to logistically even happen or work. But I think massive violence is definitely not extremely unlikely because of the escalating rhetoric on both sides. But then also if like Trump got back in power and did another coup, but it worked successfully, that could cause a huge uprising. So I think violence is something that is possible in the next 10 years. I don't think a civil war is relevant, even though, technically, very literally it's possible, but I don't think it's helpful to ponder that because it's not really an option in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, yeah, again, it's like a civil war in the sense of like like a huge disconnect between the two parties and that breaks the unity of the country. I mean, the country is not unified anyway right now, but if it gets worse, the worse it gets, the more likely something like that would happen.
My point is, it's just in the world we currently live in, it's not going to be like the red versus the blue clashing. It's going to be like some public like clashes in the streets between Antifa and Proud Boys, and then it's just going to come down to which way do the authorities go. So like if Trump does a coup and there's an uprising, does the military take him out, or do they, and by take him out I don't mean kill him, I mean like remove him from office, or does the military start going after all the people who are uprising against him? And our current authorities are just too deeply powerful, like as far as the military and the federal like law enforcement we have, that whatever they decide is going to really be what happens at the end of the day.
Yeah, well, let's hope it doesn't get to that, because it's certainly like a wake-up call for a lot of people to start. I think instead of polarizing each side, we should maybe try to find a way to connect and to, in a way, agree to disagree, because like the two parties are never going to see eye to eye on different issues. But if we keep polarizing and fear-mongering on both parties, it's not going to end well.
Agreed. Well, on that note, It's been an absolute delight chatting with you. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll talk to you later.
Definitely going to catch up later.
Awesome. Bye.
All right, cheers.
All right, y'all. Solid 3 hours and 17 minutes today. Knocked it out. I hope you all are wonderful. Thank you so much to everyone who sent in a super chat. Cannot tell you how appreciative I am of that. And tomorrow we have our Friday show. It's going to be lots of important stuff as always, and then we'll have a fun post show. I don't know what we want to call it, but this is part 2, fun as well, as we always do. And I'll see you guys then. Bye.